Chapter 23. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Another sharp piercing sound came from the front, only to see a large number of arrows coming from the front, wanting to completely obliterate Dustless. But Poochie, his body was pierced through again, but the result was exactly the same as before. It was quickly repaired and he was still unscathed. And the process of repair only took a few seconds. He can still release such a strange ability even after being poisoned? Red Assassin was surprised at Dustless's vitality. How could he not be affected at all after being poisoned? Then she coldly snorted, "Then let me see how tenacious your little life is." Boom boom boom. At this point it seemed that only the poison fog could defeat Dustless, so Red Assassin released all the poison fog without holding back. In an instant the poison content in the lungs suddenly increased by several times, and even the sky turned purple. The most frightening thing was that the surrounding green grass and trees withered, and even the fertile land was drained of vitality, turning into an endless desert, as if it was in a purple death god's space. And Dustless was still standing there safe and sound. What's the use of this thing? Dustless quickly formed a seal with his hands and then shouted, "Wind escape, great breakthrough." Rumble. A strong hurricane whistled out from Dustless's mouth, and the purple poison fog that covered the sky was suddenly blown away. "Hey, this despicable guy." Red Assassin cursed, and her voice was slightly angry. If she had to find a natural enemy for the poison fog, it would be the wind. When the wind blew, the poison fog was dispersed. "If I don't show some real ability, it's impossible to kill this guy." Red Assassin's beautiful eyes glanced at Red Archer and still had that arrogant attitude. "We'll have to fight with our lives on the line. You temporarily delay this guy, I need to prepare." Swoosh swoosh swoosh. After saying that, without waiting for Red Archer's decision, Red Assassin disappeared. This arrogant woman really thinks of herself as a queen. Archer's expression was unhappy, and his tone was also very unhappy. Listening to Assassin's tone, it was as if she was ordering him around like a subordinate. "The Empress of Assyria is worrying too much." Dustless spoke with fervor and assurance. He said in a rather evil manner, "This woman's personality is too arrogant. It should be very interesting to trample on this kind of woman's dignity. Do you think that if I let her use all her strength to unleash her ultimate move and then easily destroy it, would that woman's expression be very interesting?" Archer's body trembled and he felt an inexplicable chill. Was this guy looking forward to it? Even though she was repulsed by Assassin's arrogance that day, she understood that Assassin had the strength and capital to do so. Rumble. A large number of mud walls rose from the ground in all directions, forming a wall that was dozens of meters tall. Assassin then reinforced the wall with her own mana, forming a barrier. It could be said that the wall was impenetrable. Boom boom boom. Not long after, a large amount of thick purple fog drifted out from the sealed space. The smell was even stronger and more intense than the previous one. Dustless's expression did not change and he was completely unaffected. He stood there calmly. But, cough cough cough. Red Archer coughed violently, and a few mouthfuls of bright red blood came out from her mouth. She almost roared, "You insidious woman! Are you planning to kill me too?" Red Archer trembled with anger. This woman was truly vicious. She even killed her own teammate? Isn't that normal? However, Wuxian explained calmly, "For her, you who know the truth seems to be a hindrance. She may even fight with her after the matter is over. So it's better to find a chance to kill you too. If I'm dead, there's almost nothing in the Black Side's heroic spirit that can threaten her. The assistance of you heroic spirits is also insignificant. With Red Assassin's strength she could almost wipe out everything." "Assassin." Archer's angry voice echoed in the sealed space and no one responded. The strong would only use their fists to crush everything as a response. Only the weak would moan for no reason. "Archer." Assassin's mocking voice also rang out. She said slowly, "I'm really sorry. There's only one Holy Grail and too many heroic spirits will be a hindrance. It's better for some of them to die early, don't you think? Anyway, we'll still have to fight after defeating the black heroic spirits. Why don't you suffer a little and leave early?" "Bastard." Archer gritted his teeth. The humiliation of being betrayed was too humiliating for a heroic spirit. "Farewell." In the sealed space, a mysterious magic circle appeared in the void. Not only was poisonous fog spewing out, but there were also terrifying howls. Come out, Batum. Let the enemy see your horror before they die. As soon as the red team assassin finished speaking, the shackles on the monster hidden in the magic array were removed, and it was completely released. Ow 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 ow. A ferocious giant head rushed out of the magic circle surrounded by purple light. He opened his mouth and a heart-wrenching sound spread out. So noisy. It's not like we're comparing whose voice is louder. Dustless picked his ears and looked up. For some reason the monster only showed its head. Its huge body seemed to be hidden in the magic circle. However, even so, it was already very terrifying. This monster called Batum was a monster from Babylonian mythology. It was one of the 11 monsters created by Tiamat. Even Semiramis could not summon this monster in an instant. Chapter 24. This, how is this possible? Everyone's eyes widened to the extreme. Their eyes were as big as copper and they were all in a daze. This guy can ignore my pure ice domain? Kanzuya Aoki was dumbfounded. Dustless walked over calmly as though he was taking an afternoon stroll. As expected, Sensei is always so unfathomable. Shifeng was not surprised. The title of the strongest man in the world was not just for show. Brat. A few seconds later, Dustless walked in front of Kanzuya Aoki. He stretched out his finger and tapped the void lightly. Bam. This seemingly casual tap was like the hand of the heavens. With a light tap, Kanzuya Aoki's pure ice domain instantly collapsed. The azure domain that enveloped everyone also disappeared. You're still far from being able to challenge me at this level, Dustless said calmly. Immediately his eyes turned cold and a piercing cold light shot out. Ka. Under the pressure of this aura, Kanzuya Aoki immediately knelt down. His knees even cracked the ground. Dustless sensei, please show mercy. After all, he's just a freshman who knows nothing. Shifeng quickly admitted defeat for Kanzuya Aoki. The difference was too great. I have no intention of dealing with this kid. Otherwise he would have been beheaded. Dustless turned and left. I just want him to understand the difference between us. Let's go, Chatelisa and Violet. The three of them gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. The two girls stood on Dustless's left and right, guarding him like bodyguards. Can this guy ignore my pure ice domain? Kanzuya Aoki's lips trembled uncontrollably. He could not hide his shock. Just how powerful was Dustless? Didn't I say before that I'm not even comparable to a finger of Dustless sensei? Shifeng patted Kanzuya Aoki's arrangement and smiled as she comforted him. Dustless sensei isn't the kind of person you think he is. He's very gentle. Humph, how can you understand my pain? Kanzuya Aoki did not appreciate it. He snorted coldly and left angrily. His own sister had been killed by Dustless. Who could be at ease? Who could pretend that nothing had happened? Absolutely not. Sir President, this guy is too insensible. He completely doesn't understand how great teacher Dustless is. Dustless. Sensei killed that brat's sister because Aoki and Yi had already been Nova at that time, and their consciousness couldn't return. That's why Dustless sensei killed them. Shifeng complained to Bantisi Finello. In Seagate School, Wuchen had a large group of female fans. I hope he can recognize himself. Shifeng also shook her head and sighed. Perhaps she was worrying too much because it wouldn't take long for Kanzuya Aoki to realize how scary it was to offend Dustless in this school. That despicable guy. The culprit who killed my sister seems to be quite popular. We have to be careful. Kanzuya Aoki was extremely depressed. Because he had offended Dustless, he realized that many people were looking at him strangely. Some of them were even filled with hostility. Hey brat. At this moment a rather pleasant voice was heard. Kanzuya Aoki could not help but be stunned. He raised his head and saw a rather pretty girl blocking his way. I'm Xianxia, a third-year student. Looking at your troubled and distressed look, it seems like you need help. The girl who suddenly appeared introduced. There was a playful glint deep in her eyes. I'm a new student. Senior Xianxia, may I know where the cafeteria is? Kanzuya Aoki scratched his head and asked embarrassedly. The cafeteria? Let's go together. It's lunchtime and I'm hungry. Shinzukiya did not care if Kanzuya Aoki agreed or not. She directly led him away. Thank you. Kanzuya Aoki immediately expressed his gratitude. It turned out that there were still people in this school who hated Dustless. I heard that you're the younger brother of the hero Kanzuya Aoki? Shinzukiya suddenly asked along the way. Yes, that's my sister. The bastard who killed her is Dustless. Kanzuya Aoki clenched his fists and roared angrily. I see. Shinzukiya nodded when she heard that. The surprise in her eyes disappeared. She lowered her voice and asked, in other words, you're Dustless's enemy? Of course. Is there a need to ask? My sister was killed by him. Kanzuya Aoki said gloomily. We've arrived at the cafeteria. You can go in. Shinzukiya pointed at the closed door in the distance. Her eyes were flickering with a cold light. Thank you. Kanzuya Aoki bowed and thanked her. Just as he was about to open the door, he suddenly frowned. There was a notice beside him. It said that there was a daily sparring session. Sparring? Sparring? Is this a place for eating? Kanzuya Aoki was filled with questions, but he still opened the door. There was no scene of students gathering in front of him. There was only a spacious area. What is this place? Kanzuya Aoki was confused. Shinzukiya's ghost-like voice suddenly came from behind him. Don't you understand? Of course, it's a place for duels. Get in. Bang. Shinzukiya kicked Kanzuya Aoki in. The open door closed instantly. At that moment, Shinzukiya laughed maniacally. As for Kanzuya Aoki, he was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? Are you Dustless's enemy? That's great. As long as I beat you half to death, Dustless might look at me in a different light. He will definitely teach me a few moves. Look at that despicable woman, Chatalisa. Because of Dustless, her strength is unreliable. Once I obtain that lord's recognition, I will be able to rise to the heavens. I've been tricked. Kanzuya Aoki's heart sank when he heard that. He closed his eyes in despair. Chapter 25. Seeing the shiny sand wrapping around him, Dustless didn't dodge and let the sand wrap around him. He closed his eyes indifferently. Facing such a desperate situation, he didn't show any fear. However, Dustless's calm appearance had a different meaning in the eyes of others. I went out for a while, and a supply force of hundreds of ninjas was annihilated in less than half an hour, a group of useless things. The voice of the newcomer was imposing, his aura was calm and powerful, his body was sturdy, his skin was dark, and his majestic voice lingered in the sky. The sound of chakra stirred up a circle of ripples in the sky. But it was a monk. They were annihilated by such a little kid. How dare you? The face of the sand village is lost because of you. Looking at Dustless, who was instantly subdued by his ninjutsu, the thin monk's mouth raised a touch of disdain. He immediately looked around at the broken limbs. His cold eyes didn't show the slightest mercy. Instead, he mercilessly scolded. Clang, clang, clang. A roar similar to the collision of steel sounded. The burly man subconsciously looked up and saw that it was the sound that came from Dustless. Not bad, you didn't die. I didn't expect a waste like you to have some skills. The hunchbacked monk had a faint smile on his face. He crossed his arms in front of him and looked at Wuxia, who was wrapped in golden sand, with great interest. His face was full of expectation and curiosity. It was not hard to see that he really hoped that Wuxia could break free. It seemed that he was looking forward to Dustless's performance. It was like a cat playing with a mouse. Boom. The golden sand that surrounded Dustless burst open in an instant and scattered in all directions. Dustless was intact and exposed to the air. He looked straight forward and saw the mysterious person looking at him with a playful face. His brows suddenly frowned, his face became gloomy, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He pointed his thumb forward and pointed at the monk. Laser. The laser was ejected in a straight line, and in the blink of an eye, it was in front of him. What a strange trick, he doesn't even need to make hand seals. The bald monk looked at Dustless in surprise and immediately looked at the oncoming laser and smiled faintly. He was not afraid at all, his demeanor was very calm, he didn't put Dustless in his eyes at all. There was a kind of feeling of being at the top. Son of a bitch, taking advantage of your seniority. I will make you cry later. The corner of Dustless's mouth twitched fiercely. Looking at the calm and composed old charcoal in front of him, Dustless was so angry that his nose was crooked. At the same time he secretly raised his guard. This guy's origin was mysterious. There were only 4 known people in this world who could use the magnetic escape. Boom. Just as the light beam was about to penetrate the monk, a thick layer of sand suddenly stood in front of him, blocking Wu Chen's attack. Little brat, what's your name? My name is Fenfu. After removing the metal sand in front of him, Fenfu raised his head and said in a proud tone, looking down at Dustless like a proud rooster. Shut up, who do you think you are? I have never heard of your name, which means you are a fake. If you are a fake, you should have the awareness of being a fake, especially an ugly son of a bitch like you who has no human rights. You have no right to know my name. Dustless, who had a stomach full of anger, immediately began to attack with his mouth, using the most vicious words he could think of. You said I am ugly? The old monk called Fenfu's mouth twitched fiercely. He didn't understand Dustless's words, but when he heard the words, an ugly son of a bitch like you who has no human rights, he was instantly enraged. Chakra was so angry that he went berserk. Fenfu's old face was burning. Dustless's vicious words made him feel worse than if he was beaten up. Go to hell. Fenfu's eyes were red, full of anger, his thin body suddenly burst out, but his palm was huge, comparable to a bear's paw, and grabbed Dustless's neck with a ferocious smile on his face. Looking at this situation, it seemed that he wanted to remove Dustless's head. You dare to say I am ugly? I will beat your mother until she doesn't recognize you, you bastard. Fenfu roared to the sky, seeing Dustless was motionless and he was about to succeed. His voice was full of endless joy, and the smile on his face was as scary as a ghost. However, Dustless just smiled strangely. His dark eyes rolled rapidly, and the 5-pointed Mangekyo Sharingan stared at the big hand of Fenfu, grinning and staring at the big hand. An irregular black flame flashed in his eyes. Amaterasu. Blood suddenly flowed out of the corner of his eyes, and the black flame surged out and almost instantly fell on Rakshas's arm. It hurts. Damn son of a bitch. The severe pain instantly spread to the nerve cells all over his body. Rakshasa looked at his right arm in surprise, and was horrified to find that his right arm was wrapped in a black flame. Sharingan. Damn son of a bitch, you are from the Uchiha clan. I am the one who wants your old life. With a ferocious smile, Dustless's body floated with a golden luster, and in an instant he appeared behind Fenfu. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Now I will let you taste what it feels like to be kicked at the speed of light. Light speed kick. Chapter 26. In this battle, other than Dustless becoming famous, Iase also received a lot of attention. How is this possible? At this moment the audience on Iase's side was stunned. This girl who usually kept a low profile had displayed an extremely powerful combat strength. How is this possible? Why is it impossible? Iase said faintly. She only used one hand to lightly grab her opponent's inherent spiritual equipment with pure strength. This girl. The director was also very cautious. Although it was possible for her to become stronger, how old was Iase? Moreover, this girl's performance was not outstanding before. You did it? The director looked at Dustless who was beside her. Why do you suspect that I did it? Wu Chen asked indifferently. Because someone saw you sneaking into Iase's place at night and reported it to me. The director said truthfully. It was that little girl Stacy who secretly followed me, right? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said with certainty, she must have said that I was peeping on a beauty. You know her well. The director nodded slightly. It could be considered that she agreed with Dustless's words. Stacy did report it, but the director didn't care. Iase didn't complain about Dustless, so what right did she have to say it? Maybe it was because both of them liked each other. That's right, it was indeed my masterpiece. How is it? Very strong, right? Dustless said with a hint of pride. How did you do it? The director looked at Dustless in astonishment. Her beautiful eyes were filled with horror. Since ancient times, no matter what one did, one had to do it step by step. It was the same for the Slayer. If one wanted to become stronger, they had to constantly train and increase their own strength. However, Iase's appearance broke everyone's understanding. This girl's combat strength can now easily defeat the number 1 Dongtang Daohua. Dustless said calmly as if he was describing a trivial matter. No way. She improved so much. The director's mouth was wide open. Her beautiful eyes were shining brightly. What kind of changes did Immorse go through to evolve to such a shocking level? Don't get carried away. In the center of the arena, Immorse's opponent seemed to be enraged. His inherent spiritual equipment swept towards the former at an extremely tricky angle. Pucci. A deep scar appeared on Immorse's snow-white wrist and her bones could be seen. It doesn't seem to be of much use. Seeing this, the chairman's inner throbbing quickly calmed down. So what if he gained great power? His skills and experience did not increase. Just watch carefully. Don't underestimate people with my bloodline. Dustless crossed his arms in front of his chest. He was confident in Immorse. Your bloodline. The chairman looked at Dustless in confusion. He couldn't figure out what this meant. Dustless wasn't Immorse's relative. How could this have anything to do with blood? Look, the wound has healed. Cries of surprise resounded throughout the room. The chairman subconsciously looked at Immorse and her beautiful eyes immediately narrowed. Her wrist, which had been cut, had already recovered. There wasn't even a scar left behind. Did you give this to her too? The chairman immediately looked back at Dustless. Her gaze had already changed. It was both greedy and passionate. You seem to be very tempted. Looking at the chairman's fascinated face, Dustless calmly said, of course this kind of wound can be healed. Vampires have almost unlimited lifespan. This kind of superficial wound can be automatically healed. Vampires. The chairman was shocked and exclaimed, you turned Immorse into a monster like a vampire. Monster? I really don't know where your prejudice comes from. If you want to gain great power, you have to go through some necessary changes. Although you're completely separated from humans, it's not without benefits. First of all, you gain unlimited lifespan. Dustless didn't hide anything and said bluntly, ordinary wounds will automatically heal, unless it's an extremely fatal wound that requires blood to heal. From a human to a vampire. I feel like this is a scene from a movie. The chairman's eyes were filled with doubt, but also with excitement. Kiki. Dustless suddenly laughed sinisterly, revealing two terrifying fangs. He licked the chairman's neck with his tongue and said, do you want me to give it a try? Hearing this, the chairman immediately shuddered, and then quickly distanced herself from Dustless. Drink my blood or let me bite you and you can become a vampire. Dustless said casually. No wonder you're so strong. You're not just a human. The chairman looked at Dustless cautiously and then felt relieved. She asked with some anticipation, if I'm bitten by you, can I also become like Immorse? It seems that no one is immune to great power. Dustless smiled slightly and nodded in agreement. Not to mention Immorse had almost unlimited lifespan and a body that could heal at will. No, you'll be more outstanding than her. Dustless paused and explained, Immorse's own strength is too weak. You're far stronger than her. After becoming a vampire, your strength will increase far beyond her. Who asked you to have a higher starting line than her? What about the side effects? The chairman looked at Dustless and asked. She wasn't stupid, there was no such thing as a free lunch. You'll be my servant forever and you won't be able to resist me. Dustless couldn't help but look at the chairman. Although this girl was a little tempted, she could suppress her emotions very well. Chapter 27. Dustless's words were like a bolt from the blue, exploding. Monk Finfu was stunned and Shikaku in his spiritual world was also stunned. It wasn't until a long time later that Shikaku recovered and began to curse without hesitation. Fuck, don't use your Sharingan, I promise I won't kill you. In Finfu's spiritual world, Shikaku flew into a rage, and his already ferocious and scary raccoon head became even scarier. Murderous intent broke out like a flood, attacking his reason. Don't get carried away. Lawless kid, do you think you are invincible after opening Manjikyu Sharingan? It's just a pair of eyes that can only play with genjutsu. Finfu was angry again and again, looking at Dustless with disdain. Manjikyu Sharingan is famous for its genjutsu, this is well known, but it's just a higher form of the 3-tomo Sharingan at most, it's more powerful than the 3-tomo Sharingan. Dustless shook his head, seeing this he knew that Finfu didn't understand the Manjikyu Sharingan, so he wasn't surprised at all. Since Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Izuna, almost no one has opened Manjikyu Sharingan for nearly 100 years, and most people's understanding of the Uchiha stopped at the 3-tomo Sharingan. In that case, I will let you understand the power of the real Menjikyu Sharingan. The killing intent burst out. Suddenly, a ripple swept out of Wu Chen's pupils. His body also rose with an incomparably evil golden chakra. That terrible emotion of destruction chakra was no worse than the chakra of the tailed beast catastrophe incarnation. This is not genjutsu, and what's with that disturbing chakra? Finfu stared at the solid evil chakra on Dustless, and suddenly felt a throbbing in his soul. Looking at the terrifying scarlet eyes of Dustless, Finfu felt like he was being stared at by a tailed beast, and he lost the will to fight. Even if it's an ordinary skeleton, you are afraid to this extent? It's funny to see such a timid Jinchuriki like you. I'm afraid you're the first one. Looking at the Rakshasa, who was drenched in sweat and fearful, Dustless could not help but sneer. His pupils suddenly dilated and chakra erupted from all over his body. Kensisanu. The solid chakra quickly condensed and combined. Under Finfu's surprised gaze, a giant skeleton made of solid chakra was born. Bunpuku was so shocked that he was almost petrified. Wasn't it said that the Sharingan specialized in genjutsu? What did this mean? Things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. Don't look so surprised. This is just a newborn Kensisanu. It's still far from that. Kensisanu condense. As Dustless's voice fell behind the skeleton Kensisanu, thick chakra once again swept up, and countless meridians and blood vessels were slowly formed, holding a slender ancient sword and wearing the Tengu armor. What the hell is this thing? Taking a deep breath, Finfu's pupils were gloomy, and he desperately looked at the giant chakra that covered the sky. The majestic and oppressive chakra almost made him delirious. This is the Kensisanu of the Uchiha clan. It's really amazing. That kid has opened the Menjikyu Sharingan, and he has mastered this technique that can be called the power of the gods. He really has the strength to fight me head-on. In Rakshasa's spiritual world, Ichibi Shikaku muttered to himself, and his tone was no longer as arrogant and unrestrained as before. Instead, it was replaced by an unprecedented seriousness, and at the same time, it was unusually heavy. And what made Shikaku most concerned was that Kensisanu was obviously not ordinary. This is obviously a mature Kensisanu. How can it be so big? Shikaku's face was black and he was very speechless. It was obviously a mature Kensisanu, and it wasn't the ultimate Kensisanu, but its body size was twice as big as other mature Kensisanu. Can it be called the power of the gods? Although Shikaku didn't understand it for a long time, but the power of the gods made him feel desperate, indicating that Kensisanu has surpassed the limit of ninjutsu. Kensisanu symbolizes destruction. As long as you see it once, you will inevitably die. One slash can cut off everything, and its power is comparable to that of a bijou, Dustless lightly explained. Although his Kensisanu was only a mature Kensisanu, its size was twice as big as Itachi, and its ability was naturally much stronger. At the same time, his body was extremely uncomfortable, and his bones were stinging as if they were being pricked by needles. His vision suddenly blurred, and his spirit was extremely tired. Damn, is this the side effect of Kensisanu? Before, when I used Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, I didn't feel too strong, but I didn't expect Kensisanu to be so exhausting. It seems that I have to end this quickly. Staring at Shikaku, Dustless controlled Kensisanu to move forward, and he felt tired all over his body, and his killing intent became stronger. The dark straight shadow covered the earth, and the sharp shadow refracted by the shadow made Shikaku's whole body extremely painful, and inevitably he subconsciously looked at Dustless. Kensisanu's long katana was raised high, like a guillotine, and the person who was about to be beheaded wasn't Shikaku himself, but the whole earth. Boom! Like a god's attack, the earth suddenly burst open, and a dark crack suddenly appeared on the perfect earth, and the narrow crack extended infinitely more than 100 meters, and the bottom couldn't be seen. Even the flow of air was cut off by Dustless's Kensisanu. Under one slash, the sky was so small and the earth was so fragile. Chapter 28. Are you trying to say that you can turn something rotten into something magical? He covered his wound and tried his best to slow down the bleeding. Otherwise he would die from excessive blood loss. However, that did not change anything. His heart was already pierced through and there was no way to save it. Even though he covered his wound, a large amount of grayish-brown blood still spurted out from between his fingers. I see that you understand. Dustless casually placed his hands on his waist and looked up as he exhaled. However, I feel that this description is very suitable for me. Is that so? At the same time, there was a sudden burst of coldness behind him. Wu Chen's calm face loosened a little. Let me see what's in your heart. The voice sounded again. Dustless turned around and saw a figure as elegant as a cloud lying on his back. He did not even feel anything when he was pressed on top of him. It was as if this person did not have a physical body and was as strange as a ghost. You're out so soon? Dustless's voice was as indifferent as ever. He looked at the shattered void behind him and frowned but did not say much. The person in front of him was a young man with delicate features wearing a large coat. His pair of green eyes emitted a clear light, radiating light in all directions. It was like a piece of pure natural gemstone. It was very gentle and it made people feel relaxed and happy just by looking at it. Their hearts couldn't help but relax. What an annoying pair of eyes. However, Dustless did not have a good impression of this pair of eyes. He only felt disgusted. This was because the owner of this pair of eyes was sizing him up as if he was a prey. Who would like this kind of person? Let me see your void. Dath suddenly put one of his hands close to Dustless's chest and pulled hard. It was as if something was pulled out of thin air. There was a large amount of light in his hand. Dustless was stunned for a moment. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Under normal circumstances, it was the Lord who extracted the void of a normal human. This was definitely the first time in history that the Lord extracted the void of a lord. What an amazing guy. Dath looked rather excited as he watched the light in his hand condense into a large sword. Even Dustless stared at it in a daze. In Dath's hand was a golden sword that was more than 2 meters long. It was very dazzling, like a peerless divine sword that had a sharp edge that could cut through all obstacles. This is my void. Dustless was surprised and curious at the same time. The divine sword in front of him reminded him of the Glint Fruit's heavenly gathering cloud sword. Although there were many differences in appearance, the length and width of this sword were both greater than the heavenly gathering cloud sword. It was more than 2 meters long, but the destructive heat it emitted was almost the same. Looks like it's similar to the Glint Fruit's ability. So this is what my void is. Dustless sighed. He did not pay much attention to Dath, who was wielding a great sword. How could he lose to a rat who only dared to hide in the dark? Unbelievable. Is this power really a human's void? Dath enchanted the gorgeous photon greatsword. His hands were trembling as he gently rubbed the blade of the sword. He felt the power contained in it and praised, perhaps the king's void is different from others. This idiot. Hearing this, Dustless sneered. He could tell at a glance that this was the power of his glint fruit. It was the power he first obtained. What did it have to do with void? If he had to force a connection, it was just the glint fruit being used by Dath in the form of a void. Before we fight, there's one thing I have to make clear. Dath's expression became incomparably stern. He said with the tone of a victor, if you're willing to create a new world with Ingman's real name, I'm willing to stand by your side. Suddenly his eyes became as clear as pearls. His small hands continued to rub the blade of the lightsaber back and forth. I suddenly feel that you're more suitable than Xianxia to be the ancestor of the new humans. After all, your genes seem to be stronger than his. Perhaps after you combine with Ingman's real name, the new humans born will be stronger. Using a person to create a new race. Is that any different from breeding pigs? Dustless shook his head and refused. He did not have that kind of interest. A person living for the sake of reproduction was no different from a walking corpse. As long as one was alive, one should live freely and unfettered. That makes sense. Dath was not surprised. His expression was like a pool of stagnant water. It was as if he had expected Dustless to give such an answer. Everyone's worldview was different and their pursuits were also very different. Some people loved money and some people viewed money as dirt. No matter the time, there would always be people who did not play by the rules. Although I can understand what you're thinking, I won't allow you to ruin my plan. Dath's eyes suddenly emitted a shocking chill. He was like a bloodthirsty beast. He held the golden greatsword with both hands and slashed it fiercely in front of him. Boom boom boom. A huge slash swarmed over. It was unstoppable, like a fierce dragon that had broken out of its cage. It gnawed on the ground and tore open a very conspicuous gully. He went straight for Dustless. Even after obtaining my power, it's only at this level? Looking at the vast scale of the slash, Dustless could not help being greatly disappointed. Better let me teach you how to use the power of light. As soon as he finished speaking, countless rays of light burst out from Dustless's body like a small sun. Chapter 29. Bang boom boom boom. The place where Atlanta was standing was blasted into a huge hole that was more than 10 meters long, and a big man with muscles all over his body was standing in it. There was no doubt that this punch did not hit Atlanta. At the critical moment just now, she avoided it with a vigorous movement technique. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A burst of intensive ear-piercing sounds came from the east. Shiro Amakusa frowned suddenly and quickly shouted, "Berserker, go after her." It was obviously the sound of footsteps and there was no need to think about it. It was undoubtedly Atlanta. What a clingy guy. Looking at the big man chasing after her, Atlanta frowned. This guy was laughing as he chased after her. He was so mad that he no longer had any sense of reason. Atlanta decisively avoided the fight. Her goal was assassin, so she could forget about this big man. The situation has completely collapsed. Are we going to lose just like that? In the dead, silent, broken room, Shiro Amakusa was left alone again. He clenched his fists with a twisted expression. There was nothing more devastating than having one's dream shattered. Although he still had several heroic spirits on his side, they were obviously at a disadvantage compared to the black side. In addition, there were two powerful enemies, Ruler and Dustless. Especially Dustless, this was a hero that Shiro Amakusa was most afraid of. Until now, he still hadn't figured out where he came from and what kind of invincible history he had. Dustless. Shiro Amakusa's usually elegant face was now suffused with a ferocious expression, and his handsome cheeks were as terrifying as an evil spirit. When a rabbit was forced into a corner, it would bite people, let alone a scheming man like Shiro Amakusa. "Oh, I'm very far away, but I can hear you calling my name." An unexpected voice suddenly rang out. Shiro Amakusa was startled at first, then he abruptly turned his head. What entered his eyes was Dustless, who was slowly walking over. Previously he had been searching for other targets, but who knew that he happened to hear Shiro Amakusa's venting roar, which attracted him here. "I'm going to grind your bones to dust." Shiro Amakusa gritted his teeth and a few blades appeared in his hands. He looked at Dustless with an unfriendly gaze as if he wanted to swallow him alive. "If I remember correctly, this is the first time we've met. What's with your hateful expression?" Dustless was also puzzled. It was clearly the first time they had met. Was there something wrong with this? However, Zhou Xian looked at Shiro Amakusa with a vicious gaze, as if Dustless had done something to hurt him. Could it be that? "I killed your parents." Dustless rubbed his nose helplessly, because Shiro Amakusa's eyes were filled with hatred. It was as if he was looking at an enemy who had killed his parents. "You've ruined my dream and prevented me from saving the entire human race. This is countless times more serious than killing my parents." Shiro Amakusa roared, his voice hoarse. "In comparison, I'd rather have my parents dead." Dustless stared at Shiro Amakusa in silence. Dream? Was the so-called dream so important that he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his own parents? "You're too stupid." Dustless shook his head. No matter what dream it was, if he didn't hesitate to sacrifice his parents, this kind of person was hopelessly stupid. If your parents knew that they had a sad son like you, they would definitely be in despair. Dustless couldn't help but sympathize with Shiro Amakusa's parents. Wasn't it a tragedy to have a son like this? "What do you know?" Shiro Amakusa snorted angrily and reprimanded, "The world today is filthy and the humans today are filthy and ugly. And Shiro Amakusa pointed at his own face and said emotionally, "I only wanted to use the power of the Holy Grail to change the world and purify the human race. I wanted to give the entire human race a qualitative upgrade and create a truly perfect world. But you, a demon, actually destroyed my dream. You are a sinner to the entire human race." A sinner to the entire human race? Dustless's eyes widened. This was the first time he experienced the feeling of a pot falling from the sky. He became a sinner to the entire human race just because he destroyed Shiro Amakusa's plan? "I don't have time to listen to your nonsense." Dustless couldn't be bothered with Shiro Amakusa and said bluntly, "Where did you hide that Leo jelly? Hand him over and I'll let you die a quick death." Mordred had once begged Dustless to help save Leo jelly, and Dustless had readily agreed. After all, it was his daughter's request. Shiro Amakusa had a sinister smile on his face. What a pity. That guy might not even be in this world anymore. If that's the case, you'll die a horrible death. Dustless's eyes flashed with a cold light. For example, this is the outcome. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dustless flicked his finger and a few rays of light shot straight at Shiro Amakusa. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Shiro Amakusa was prepared for this as well. He dodged immediately. Assassin had strengthened his body and his speed, strength and reaction speed had all received a qualitative upgrade. Boom boom boom. A few black holes immediately appeared where Shiro Amakusa had been standing. It won't be that easy to kill me. After dodging the attack, Shiro Amakusa looked at Dustless with his head held high. If you want to kill me, you'll have to at least. Before he could finish his sentence, Shiro Amakusa screamed in pain. A few rays of light came from behind and easily pierced through his four limbs. Chapter 30. Plop. Shiro Amakusa didn't even have the strength to stand. 2 holes appeared in his legs. His legs went soft and he fell flat on his face. Dustless slowly walked over. Shiro Amakusa's face was full of hatred. "It's you." Even though he knew that death was near, Shiro Amakusa still didn't know how to repent. Like a beast that had been forced into a desperate situation, he roared fiercely, "Why did you stop me from saving all of humanity? You are." Bang. Dustless stepped on Shiro Amakusa's head. Because he used too much force, Shiro Amakusa's chin hit the floor, and it was instantly a bloody mess. All of his teeth were knocked out, and he was in so much pain that a layer of cold sweat appeared on his scalp. "I'm sorry. I didn't control my strength just now. I'm really sorry." Dustless's eyes narrowed into crescents and he smiled sinisterly. "You are." Shiro Amakusa screamed in pain halfway through his sentence. It wasn't just his teeth. His upper and lower lips had been ground to mush. It was too painful to move the corners of his mouth when he spoke. I don't care why you're looking for that Leo jelly. I'll destroy everything you want." Even though he was grimacing in pain, even though he knew that he was going to die, Shiro Amakusa still went against Dustless. Dustless carefully examined Shiro Amakusa for a moment. "I haven't met an iron-headed child like you in many years." Dustless's eyes flashed with a dark red light. "If you want to play, I'll play with you until the end." After saying that, Dustless moved his foot and landed on Shiro Amakusa's shoulder. It seemed like he was planning to crush him. Saber. At this time, Shiro Amakusa suddenly roared. His face was ferocious and he scolded in exasperation, "Useless trash, you were actually defeated by a mere cyborg and the strongest swordsman at that." Dustless was startled by Shiro Amakusa's nonsensical words. Did he mean that Mordred had been defeated? The opponent is an android. Does that mean Seek? I failed. It's all because of these guys. Apart from Assassin, none of them were useful, Shiro Amakusa complained. Lancer was killed by Dustless, Rider was also killed by Dustless, Archer Atlanta surrendered to Dustless and Mordred was also defeated. Just thinking about Shiro Amakusa made Shurjan want to vomit blood. What kind of bullshit was this? Brat, what's wrong with Mordred? Dustless's foot landed on Shiro Amakusa's shoulder, causing his bones to crack. What's your relationship with that guy? Why do you care so much about her? Shiro Amakusa asked hoarsely. It seemed that from the beginning, Dustless and Mordred had an inexplicable relationship. Technically, she's my daughter, even though we're not related by blood, Dustless said truthfully. Your daughter. Shiro Amakusa was completely dumbfounded. The situation was in a deadlock for a moment. Then he laughed maniacally. That's great. I'm sorry to tell you that your daughter has already been killed by that clone. As a father, your own daughter was killed and you can only watch as it happened. Curse your incompetence. Shiro Amakusa barked, but Dustless didn't even blink. Although Mordred was defeated and killed as a heroic spirit, she was already dead. As for Dustless and Mordred, there were no feelings between them. What incompetence and self-blame. Wasn't that just nonsense? But that clone actually defeated Mordred. That's quite surprising. Dustless shook his head, feeling that it was somewhat unreal. Why? Was it because Seek had a protagonist aura? In any case, Mordred was someone who had inherited Artoria's bloodline. Losing to a mere clone was too humiliating. No matter how he looked at it, it was somewhat inconceivable. No matter what, you're going to die first. After saying that, Wuxian stepped on Shiro Amakusa's head. As long as this guy died, no matter who the red team spirit was, they would be done for. Wait. At this moment, a hurried voice sounded. Dustless's eyes narrowed as a pitiful figure appeared in front of him. You're already in this state and you still want to stop me? Dustless stared at the injured person. It was Assassin. Although she had the advantage in terms of strength, she was heavily outnumbered, so she suffered quite a bit. Her pure black clothes were soaked in blood. Assassin. Shiro Amakusa's eyes trembled. He was also very surprised by Assassin's arrival. Let go of the master. He's just an ordinary person. Assassin said weakly. When she spoke, she pulled on her injuries, causing blood to flow out of the wounds all over her body. Say that again. I might have heard wrongly. Dustless dug his ears. Motherf ***, this woman was already in this state. She was riddled with wounds, yet she still wanted to ask him to let Shiro Amakusa go. Where did she get the courage? Assassin, I thought you were different from the others. After all, as an empress, there must be something that's completely different from the other heroic spirits. Who knew that you're still the same? You're no different from those idiots. You all like to say such nonsense. Shiro Amakusa must die. Dustless's expression was cold as ice as he said cruelly. Chapter 31. Ayaya. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fong seriously. You're already so old. Not to mention you're hunched back, even your hair is white. I can't bear to kill you. Really? I don't see any respect for old people in your eyes. Silver Fong looked at Dustless solemnly, not daring to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. Dustless said it nicely, but in fact his eyes were as fierce and cruel as a beast's. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it was not much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power, which Silver Fong could not do. In other words, Silver Fong was probably not a match for him. Quick, run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body is not something a normal human can have. Puff puff puff. After saying that, the atomic warrior spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. What you're saying makes me sound like a monster. Don't accuse me, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is... Silver Fong suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, it was not slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. It's obvious that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light and he followed with a whoosh. Silver Fong ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless did not follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground, sweating profusely, and said, "He shouldn't have caught up, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll just wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fong raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. There will be big problems if we leave him alone." Silver Fong deliberately used awkward words and said, "Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely brutal. They are bloodthirsty and they don't keep hostages." Silver Fong could only hope that Dustless could divert his firepower to the dragon-level monster. "I naturally won't spare the heroes, but I can't spare your hero association either. Who told you to list me as an enemy? What a bunch of fools." Dustless was expressionless as he plummeted from the sky and approached Silver Fang step by step. Cough cough cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. He stood up miraculously, looked at Silver Fong and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back." "How are you going to hold him back when you're already like this?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it, you have to consider the environment before bragging." "How can this be?" Silver Fong frowned deeply and looked at the atomic warrior unhappily. Then he stared at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep hatred between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you smooth things over." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless refused directly. Then 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong were stunned and exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now?" "You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now do you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless held his head lazily. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong were devastated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It was at this moment that a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fong. A pure gold foot cast in gold fell directly. Light speed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fong's body. Silver Fong groaned in pain and then his whole body disappeared. Boom. The apartment not far away was directly hit by Silver Fong. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. Seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. "Let's start with you. Go to hell." Laser. A beam of light pounced on the atomic warrior. His memory had been extracted and this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop. The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fong seriously. He's old. Not to mention his hunched back, even his hair is white. I can't bear to do it. Really? I don't see any respect for the old man in your eyes. Silver Fong looked at Dustless solemnly. He didn't dare to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it wasn't much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power. This was something that Silver Fong couldn't do. In other words, quick run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body isn't something a normal human can have. What you're saying makes me sound like a monster. Don't accuse me, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is... Silver Fong suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he wasn't slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. I can tell at a glance that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light as he chased after Silver Fong. Silver Fong ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless didn't follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground and said, sweating profusely, "He shouldn't have caught up with us, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll just wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fong raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at 2 insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. If we leave him alone, there will be big problems." Silver Fong said in a deep voice, deliberately using embarrassing words. "Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely cruel. They are bloodthirsty. They don't keep hostages." Silver Fong only hoped that Dustless could divert his attention to the dragon-level monster. "I naturally won't let go of Hero, but I can't let go of your Hero Association either. Who asked you to list me as an enemy? A bunch of idiots." Dustless was expressionless. His body fell from the sky and approached Silver Fong step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. His little universe exploded as he stood up miraculously. He looked at Silver Fang and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back here." "You're already like this. How are you going to hold him back?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it, you have to consider the environment before bragging." "How can this be?" Silver Fang immediately frowned deeply and looked at the atomic warrior unhappily. Then he looked at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep hatred between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you smooth things over." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless directly refused. Then 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang were stunned. They exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now?" "You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now do you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless lazily hugged his head. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang's hearts were dead. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fang. A pure gold foot cast in gold directly fell. Light speed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fang's body. Silver Fang groaned in pain and then his whole body disappeared. Rumble. Silver Fang crashed into an apartment not far away. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. Seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. "Let's start with you." "Go to hell." Laser. A beam of light pounced on the atomic warrior. Since his memory had been extracted, this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop. The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fang seriously. He's old. Not to mention his hunched back, even his hair is white. I can't bear to do it. Really? I don't see any respect for the elderly in your eyes. Silver Fang looked at Dustless solemnly. He didn't dare to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it wasn't much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power, which Silver Fang couldn't do. In other words, quick run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body is not something a normal human can have. What you said makes me sound like a monster. Don't simply accuse people, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is... Silver Fang suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he wasn't any slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. I can tell at a glance that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light and he followed with a whoosh. Silver Fang ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless didn't follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground, sweating profusely, and said, "He shouldn't have caught up, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll actually wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fang raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at 2 insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. If we leave him alone, there will be big problems." Silver Fang said in a deep voice, deliberately using embarrassing words. Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely cruel. They are bloodthirsty. They don't keep hostages. Silver Fang only hoped that Dustless could divert his attention to the dragon-level monster. "I won't let go of Hero, but I can't let go of your Hero Association either. Who asked you to list me as an enemy? A bunch of idiots." Dustless was expressionless. His body fell from the sky and approached Silver Fang step by step. Cough cough cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. His little universe exploded. He stood up miraculously, looked at Silver Fang and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back here." "You're already like this. How can you hold him back?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it, you have to consider the environment before bragging." "How can this be?" Silver Fang immediately frowned deeply as he looked unhappily at the atomic warrior. Then he looked at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep grudges between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you mediate the relationship." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless refused directly. Then 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang were stunned. They exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now?" "You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless lazily hugged his head. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang's hearts were dead. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fang. A pure gold foot made of gold fell directly. Light speed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fang's body. Silver Fang groaned in pain and then his whole body disappeared. Boom. The apartment not far away was directly hit by Silver Fang. "This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. Seems that he has trained his body quite a bit." Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. "Let's start with you. Go to hell." Laser. A beam of light rushed towards the atomic warrior. His memory had been extracted and this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop. The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Chapter 32. This is an undeniable fact. Yuji, you didn't have a brother from the start. Zhou only used your brother's body. Following Dustless's words, the atmosphere became unusually tense. Everyone's face was tense. This topic was too heavy. Zhou, sure, I remember him. He killed my parents. Yuji's eyes were red and crystal clear tears were rolling down her cheeks. There will be a day when you take your revenge. Dustless patted Yuji's shoulder to comfort her. His gaze was gentle and then he looked at Jia Yuanshao. His face was as cold as ice. Now can we go back? Miss Yuji, you really don't want to think about it? Jia Yuanshao still didn't give up. His tone was a few times heavier. Master Shu, everything up till now. Trash, shut up. Dustless opened his mouth to interrupt Jia Yuanshao. His pair of calm eyes were brewing flames that could melt everyone. I allowed you to enter my world, but I didn't allow you to do whatever you want in my world. You want to kidnap Yuji with morals? Don't be so smug. After finishing his words, Dustless slightly reduced his aura. Bang. Although it was just a trace of his aura which was insignificant to Jia Yuanshao, it was like Mount Tai was pressing down on him. It was as if the entire world was pressing down on his shoulders. His standing legs instantly knelt down, crushing the floor. So strong. 1,000 Miles Ji and Rima Yunya were also affected. Dustless didn't target them. The two of them couldn't stop sobbing. They felt as if their necks were grabbed by an invisible hand that could end their lives at any time. Your world? When did I walk into your world? Don't talk nonsense. This isn't your territory. It's the Black Master Academy. Master Shu and Black Master Huiyan built it together. Jia Yuanshao was stubborn. Even if his knees were about to be crushed, he still had a deep hatred for Dustless. The hatred between the two could be said to be irreconcilable. Dustless and Zhou would not rest until one of them was dead. Zhou follower Zhou was also an enemy of Zhou. Zhou also snatched away Zhou's childhood sweetheart Sayaka Hyun. Dustless grinned and stared at Jia Yuanshao, who had a painful expression. There was nothing more humiliating than kneeling in front of the enemy. He taunted, "The ignorant are fearless. Yeah, tell this brat what my world is." Hearing this, Suojia of the Morning Garden walked to Jia Yuanxiao's side with a cold face. Looking at his painful face, she had no sympathy. She had once told him not to hang around in front of Dustless in the future, but Jia Yuanshao had completely turned a deaf ear to it and ignored it. Now that there was a problem, who could he blame? He only had himself to blame. Lord Dustless's line of sight is his god's domain. Every blade of grass and every tree in sight belongs to Master. Sayaka Hayuan looked down at Jia Yuanxiao. Her faint voice was unusually overbearing, as if she was narrating an ironclad fact. Nonsense. Jia Yuanxiao's face changed greatly. This Sayaka Hayuan was really led astray by Dustless. Her words were not normal. I've spared you once. Now please die. Dustless's face was frosty, and a rough long bone came out of his palm and flew out like a bow and arrow. Puff. Jia Yuanxiao felt pain in his abdomen. He looked down and saw blood all over the ground. In a split second, the bone pierced Jia Yuanxiao's abdomen. Xiao. Seeing this, Rima Yuanyan 1,000 miles Ji Kue panicked and hurried over. You two also kneel for me. With a cold face, Dustless's silent Haushiku haki fell on their heads. Puff. The two of them suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Their internal organs were shaken. The moment the supreme might descended, it was as if they had been punched by an invisible hand. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and fell to the ground, unable to endure the exhaustion. Cough, cough, cough. Jia Yuanxiao kept vomiting blood and his eyes were dim. He looked up at Dustless with a smile on his face. You're just so. You can't kill me with a single move. Jia Yuanxiao's tone was very weak and his breathing was also very small. It could be ignored. The smile on his face was more like joy in pain. You're about to die and you still don't repent? Sayaka Hayuan's eyes were complicated. Seeing her childhood sweetheart die in front of her, she didn't feel sad. She just felt that it was not worth it for Jia Yuanxiao. There was no doubt that Jia Yuanxiao died for Yulan Shu, but would Yulan Shu be sad because of his death? The answer was absolutely no. I forgot to tell you, that was killing gray bones. Dustless responded calmly and then closed his eyes. Ka. Jia Yuanxiao's body inexplicably peeled off, dismembered piece by piece and disappeared without a trace. Not even a corpse was left. You bastard. Jia Yunli was stunned for a while before he raged like a raging lion. Dustless in front of him was an intruder who invaded his territory and he had to kill him. I'll keep you for now, but I have to restrict your freedom. Dustless stared at Jia Yunli with a playful look. This guy was Yulan Shu's son and he might be useful to him. Haka, take this guy away. Don't let him run away. Dustless ordered Sayaka Hayun. Find a place to imprison him. Just don't let him die. I won't wait for death. Just as Jia Yunli was about to stand up, Sayaka Hayun quietly came behind him. With a karate chop, Jia Yunli was knocked unconscious. Let go of Jia Yunli. Rima Yunli grabbed Jia Yunli's arm tightly. Her strength was no match for Sayaka Hayun, who had drunk Dustless's blood. She quickly gave up and looked at Sayaka Hayun indifferently. The difference in strength was too great. Chapter 33. Ayaya. What a terrifying monster. Will we be digested if we continue to stay here? Will we be excreted like feces? Dustless touched his chin and looked at Jester with a faint smile. Everyone was speechless when they heard this. Is there something wrong with you? We're about to be killed and you're still making such a silly joke. It's a bit rude, but that's exactly what Sir meant. Jester nodded. If they couldn't get out, they would be digested and excreted like feces. We just saved my mother and now we're going to die? Wanlia gritted her teeth. Her slightly ferocious face showed that she was unwilling. Even if you want to die here, I don't want to. I haven't had enough fun yet, Dustless replied calmly, and then a flash of light appeared between his fingers. Dustless released a large amount of spiritual pressure from his body. The void flash between his fingers became denser and denser, and its power became stronger and stronger. After a while, Dustless flicked his fingers and a blue light swept out. Wang Su's flash. Boom, boom, boom. The ugly monster, which was as big as a mountain, exploded on the spot. A huge hole was blown in its abdomen by the void flash, and blood spurted out dozens of meters away. The monster died on the spot. Dustless and the others flew out one after another and escaped safely. Damn it, you actually managed to escape. On a dense tree in the distance, two blurry figures stood. The two of them blended into the leaves and it was difficult to see them with pure vision. Moreover, the two of them were surrounded by a layer of transparent light, like a barrier, which could prevent others from perceiving them. These two people were Roz and Dongqing Ringing. Originally, the two of them were here to send off Dustless. Who would have thought that this guy would be so strong and crush Zorkiel so violently? Even that monster was killed instantly. What are we going to do next? Dongqing Ringing asked. He glanced at Dustless from the corner of his eyes, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. What else can we do? We're running for our lives, of course. Roz snorted in annoyance. They were going to fight Dustless alone? Forget it, even if there were 1,000 of them they would still be crushed. Are we just going to watch this guy leave? Dongqing Ren asked in dissatisfaction. His words implied that he wanted to have a big fight with Dustless. If you have any unrealistic thoughts, I advise you to put them down. You are not his opponent yet. Moreover, we have already found an ally. The current Demon King Leonhardt is willing to help us. Ra's words were shocking. His words made Dong Qingren smile. Really? Dong Qingren was extremely excited. Although he did not know who this Demon King was and he had never seen him in person, since he was able to sit on the Demon King's seat, he must be extremely powerful. Furthermore, he controlled an army. All right, let's retreat for now. Taking a deep breath, Dong Qingren suppressed his anger. There was still a long time in the future. There was no need to rush for revenge. Although he wanted to kill Dustless, he was not stupid. This guy was so powerful that he could destroy heaven and earth. Not to mention himself, even if he teamed up with Roz, they might be killed in an instant. Speaking of which, when did that Demon King become enlightened? Why is he helping us? I am from the Hero Tribe. Dong Qingren turned around and asked in surprise. The Hero Tribe and the Nephilim Tribe had always been at odds. In the past they even had a big war. Although the war was later stopped, both sides still did not see eye to eye with each other. Now that the Demon King was willing to help Dong Qingren, it was indeed unbelievable. That guy is too strong. The stronger the person, the more unscrupulous they are. Although he has no grudge with Leonhardt, the strong have a common problem, and that is, they don't like to follow the rules. Roz said mysteriously. What he meant was that Leonhardt had already regarded Dustless as a threat. In Dustless's house, after rescuing Wanlia's mother, everyone realized that there was one more beautiful woman. Many people looked at him differently. Zhui put her hands on her hips and looked at Dustless angrily. Her spittle flew all over the place. You are really Before she could finish her sentence, she stopped. Looking at her carefully, her cute cheeks were already red and her eyes had become blurred. Obviously, the curse was activated again. You are really asking for trouble. Seeing this, Dustless could not help but laugh. The curse would be activated if she had the slightest thought of disobeying him. Help me. Zhui laid in Dustless's arms and her voice softened. It sounded like she was asking for help, but her soft tone was more like a disguised request for one's soul. Hearing this, the girls looked at Zhui with pity. At the same time, everyone stared at Wanlia with resentment. This evil curse was so evil that if she had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, she would be retaliated. It worked every time. Next time you can solve it yourself. Dustless glared at Zhui fiercely, then carried her to the bedroom. Everyone knew what to do next. This curse is too evil. Even a nightmare should go to hell. Rafa and Irene couldn't help but shrink her legs. Hearing Zhui's slight moan, her pretty face turned red. Soon she would also sign a master-servant contract with Dustless. If she had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, the curse would follow. Just thinking about it was scary. Only this way can we test if you are loyal to Sir Dustless. Those who have a guilty conscience must be afraid. Wanlia snorted. Everyone looked at each other and they could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. Most of them were forced by Dustless using despicable means. Loyalty? Definitely not. It was good enough that they could resist killing him. Chapter 34. It's no wonder that Kushina questioned Dustless. After all, it takes more than 4 days to travel from Konoha to the Sands base, which means that Dustless only took half a day to annihilate the supply force protected by the Ichibi. In fact, Jiraiya also had doubts about Dustless's answer, but since they are all teammates, it's hard to say. Although he has great confidence in Dustless and his Mangekyo, Annihilating hundreds of elite ninjas and Jinchuriki in half a day is obviously not scientific. Uchiha Dustless, did you just say that you annihilated the supply force of the sand in half a day? Trying to suppress the anger in her heart, Kushina's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Do you think you're a god? Even if the Hokage himself went out, it would be impossible to annihilate such a force in half a day. Maybe he would even get beaten up by the other side. Jinchuriki is a real Kage tier ninja and there are dozens of elite ninjas. You said that you annihilated them in half a day? Who would believe it? Indeed. Dustless looked at Kushina's eyes, and then directly ignored her and said in an extremely indifferent tone. He didn't understand what was going on with this woman. Why was she deliberately targeting him? Is it because I stole Minato's script? Is that why she's targeting me? Noticing that Uzumaki Kushina was looking at him more and more unkindly, Dust secretly thought about it and immediately shook his head. Uzumaki Kushina's character was not that kind of narrow-minded person. He and Minato didn't have any competitive relationship. The two of them were completely different existences. Kakaka. Seeing that Dustless still admitted that he annihilated the supply force of the sand, Kushina suddenly became furious, and her seemingly soft little hand directly smashed the table into pieces and asked coldly, Dustless Uchiha, I admit that you are very strong, but the people here are not 3-year-old children. Don't you think that lies are ridiculous? Kushina sneered at Dustless's expressionless face. The only ones who can defeat the supply force of the sand in half a day are Hashirama and Madara. There is no Uchiha Dustless. So that's how it is. Dust looked at Uzumaki Kushina with a strange expression. He finally understood what she meant and said lightly, You mean to say that the annihilation of the sand supply army was a scam, and it was actually for my own merits? Humph. Hearing this, Kushina just snorted. Although she didn't say anything, there was no doubt that this was what she meant. The Manjikyu Sharingan is terrifying, but to defeat a Jinchuriki using Genjutsu is useless because the bijou inside the Jinchuriki can interfere with his chakra and Genjutsu is useless. Kushina coldly looked at Dustless. Why does she know that Genjutsu is useless against a Jinchuriki? Because she is the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Although she hasn't seen the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan with her own eyes, she is still an Uzumaki. Even if the Uzumaki clan has completely declined, she is still a descendant of the Six Paths, and even if she doesn't know everything about this distant relative, she still has a basic understanding of him. At least in Kushina's eyes, Dustless shouldn't be so strong. Unless you prove your strength. Kushina's tone suddenly changed and her beautiful eyes stared at Dustless and she said, Unless you have the strength to defeat me, then you can't do it. Huh. Hearing this, Dustless directly laughed and looked at Kushina with contempt as if he was looking at a clown. What's so funny? Seeing this, Kushina was instantly angry and her eyes were burning with anger. She originally wanted to give Dustless a way out, but she didn't expect the latter to be so insensible and make fun of her. Defeating you doesn't mean anything. As long as I defeat you, I have the strength to defeat a bijou. Don't you think your question is too ridiculous and naive, Uzumaki Kushina? Dustless said sarcastically, although Kushina's chakra is scary, but what does it mean? You and I are not in the same dimension. Looking at Kushina faintly, Dustless's calm and powerful voice sounded, and his voice was full of confidence. It's not that Dustless is exaggerating. Although Kushina's strength is not bad, she's still young and she hasn't reached the late stage yet. Defeating her now is really not difficult for Dustless. Of course, the premise is that she doesn't use the power of the Kyuubi. Although using the power of the Kyuubi is a bit difficult for Dustless, it's really not difficult to defeat her. Are you kidding me? Hearing this, Uzumaki Kushina was furious. She was mocked by Wuxia for not being in the same dimension as her, which was tantamount to a direct slap in her face. She didn't know when, but all kinds of sharp ninja weapons appeared in her hands, and she immediately flashed behind Dustless and tightly choked his neck, and in the blink of an eye she subdued Dustless. You're just so. Kushina was proud, and when she was about to despise Dustless for overestimating himself, she suddenly felt a burning sensation on her hand, and she subconsciously retracted her hand. Dustless's body was covered with a golden luster, and after a while his whole figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was holding the Kushina sword, and the sharp blade was pointed at Kushina's throat, and his indifferent little face was full of indifference and his eyes were emotionless. I'm right, you and I are not in the same dimension and I don't like to joke. Chapter 35. You want to play tricks with me? Kid, you're still miles away from that. Let's see how I'll deal with you today. Dustless's eyes darted around, his entire being radiating a cunning aura. He wasn't the one who had tricked Summer Striped. Since the kid had taken the initiative to attack, Dustless had to return the favor. Cough cough cough. After my initial assessment, I'm sorry to say that this kid is probably crippled. Dustless's words sent them straight to hell. Be it Winter Striped or Huang Lingyin, their faces paled. Bullsh asterisk to you quack. I'm perfectly fine, since when am I crippled? Summer Striped cursed inwardly. How could he treat a patient with this level of skill? This was utter nonsense. You must have a way, right? I spent so much money to invite you here, you can't just leave like nothing happened. Huang Lingyin rushed to Dustless, her voice laced with tears. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Of course, of course. Dustless nodded, but he was cursing inwardly. Damn Summer Striped. Why are so many girls interested in him? It's like a flower stuck in cow dung. No, a flower stuck in dog dung. Based on my estimation, Xianxia is in a vegetative state right now. Dustless spoke slowly. It's not impossible to wake him up, but it's extremely difficult. It's as difficult as ascending to heaven. As you know, a vegetative state isn't much different from a dead person, so we need to use stimulation therapy. What do you plan to do? Winter Striped heaved a sigh of relief. Dustless's calm demeanor suggested that he had a solution. It's simple. If you want to wake him up, the best way is to stimulate him mentally. Dustless smiled strangely. As you know, Summer hates me the most, so we need to fight poison with poison. I'm the best person to deal with him. Dustless's eyes fell on Millennium Weaver. With a calm smile, he whispered to her, let's do something interesting in this room. Who knows? Maybe we'll wake him up. Interesting things. Vega Thousand Winter looked at Dustless suspiciously. What was this guy talking about? Seeing his evil grin, Weaver Thousand Winter suddenly had a bad premonition, and his whole body shivered. Of course it's about the body. You're mine from now on, little Qiandong. Dustless said truthfully. Only an idiot would let go of such a good opportunity that Summer Vega had created for him. You're just messing around. Thousand Winter Weaver's face turned red. Dustless was clearly taking advantage of the situation. Ka. At this moment, the lying Summer of Weaving suddenly swayed. Looking at his pale cheeks, it was now a patch of red. Did you see that? My method worked, didn't it? We haven't tried it yet and Xia's face is already red with anger. If we really try it, he will definitely be able to regain consciousness by then. Wuxia struck while the iron was hot and tried his best to bluff. Really? Doubt flashed in Thousand Winter Weaver's eyes. She looked at the red-faced Summer Vega, who had yet to wake up. He seemed to have been provoked. If it doesn't work, I'm willing to hand over his head to you. Dustless made a solemn vow. His words completely crushed Thousand Winter Weaver's last line of defense. Fine, let's try it. Thousand Winter Weaver gritted her teeth and finally agreed with a red face. She and Dustless had already done some things in the past anyway. She just hadn't broken through the final barrier yet. Hee, that's good. Dustless smiled proudly. He then turned to Cecilia and Huang Lingyin. You two should leave. It's not appropriate for us to be seen doing that kind of thing. Not appropriate, my ass. Dustless, you bastard. How dare you take advantage of my misfortune? I'll kill you today. The motionless Summer of Weaving suddenly jumped up as if he was possessed by a wolf or a tiger. He pointed at Wuxia and scolded, You quack, I'm fine. You're the one in a vegetative state. You actually want to take advantage of my sister. Shameless scum. After scolding Dustless, Summer Vega revealed a smug smile. He had exposed this despicable man's dirty plan. Everyone would definitely see him in a new light. Oh, you're finally awake. Aren't you tired of pretending? Dustless let go of Vega and looked at Huang Lingyin. Mission accomplished. I'm going back to sleep. Let's meet your parents some other day, Lingyin. Meet my parents. Summer Vega was taken aback. What did that mean? Lingyin paid a huge price to get Dustless Sama's help. She now belongs to Dustless Sama. It's all thanks to you. Cecilia took the opportunity to add salt to the wound. This sentence couldn't be any simpler. In order to get Dustless's help, she had sacrificed herself. The funny thing was that Summer Vega didn't have any illness at all. It was all an act by the kid. Idiot, intelligence is a good thing. Go home and practice before you play with me. Casting a glance at Weaver Spot Xianxia, Dustless left. A burst of carefree laughter reverberated in the entire space. Tonight's self-written and self-directed drama was very exciting. I'll hate you forever. Huang Lingyin couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She left in tears. What's going on, Sister Thousand East? Summer Vega stared blankly at Thousand East. It was ridiculous. You idiot. Slap. A palm print appeared on Summer Vega's face. Thousand East had given him a merciless slap. Chapter 36. Ha. Do you have enough brains? I know you're strong, but this little girl is still in my hands. I'll kill her if she tries anything funny. Ernst was not afraid of Dustless's killing intent. Even though he knew this guy was unfathomably strong, he had an advantage. A hostage. Thinking of this, Ernst could not help but admire his own resourcefulness. Scum. Pomelo's face was red as she shouted angrily. The ignorant are fearless. Dustless sighed. His tone was full of pity as he said, Your celestial race was recently destroyed. Only a few escaped. Do you know who did it? How do you know about this? Ernst looked at Dustless in shock. As a member of the celestial race, he naturally knew that the celestial race was recently destroyed and suffered heavy losses. This race was almost wiped out. Only a few managed to survive. Thinking of the mastermind behind this, Ernst felt his scalp go numb. Even the big shots in the celestial realm found it difficult to deal with such a strong enemy, let alone him. Are you afraid of him? Dustless asked again with a teasing look on his face. Nonsense, who wouldn't be afraid of such an existence? Ernst snorted coldly. Fortunately, he was not in the celestial realm. Otherwise, he would definitely be dead. Ha ha. Dustless's smile grew wider as he said, Actually, I'm the culprit behind the destruction of the celestial race. Do you believe me? Believe my ass. Ernst snorted disdainfully. You're very strong, but you're still lacking if you want to destroy our celestial race. A mere human could destroy the entire celestial race? You would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. But he's the one who destroyed the celestial race. A cold and pleasant voice sounded, intoxicating like a fragrant wind. Ernst was overjoyed. He quickly turned around and said in surprise, Lady Freya, it's really you. This person beside you is. Looking at Rafa and Irene, Ernest seemed to know her as well. Impossible. You should have been imprisoned. Who let you out? He exclaimed in shock. Of course it's me. I'm also the one who destroyed the Protoss. Dustless's voice rang out again. Ernst's face twitched. Kneel down and apologize, Onis. Resisting him will only lead to destruction. Hasegawa coldly said. This guy had eyes but couldn't see, so who could he blame? Was it really you who destroyed the gods in heaven? Ernst's voice trembled. He did not expect this smiling young man to be so terrifying. Did he destroy the heaven realm alone? Just thinking about it made him feel a chill run down his spine. Countless great figures had died at the hands of Dustless, let alone him. Do I need to lie to you, kid? Dustless asked and pointed at Irene. He smirked and said, Come, call me master. Hearing this, Rafa and Irene's expression slightly changed. Looking at Dustless's unquestionable expression, they could only helplessly call out, Greetings, master. That soft voice made one's body go limp. Damn it, am I dreaming? Aonis slapped himself in the face. The burning pain told him that this was not a dream. Then he looked at Rafa Irene in disbelief and exclaimed, You are also one of the 10 gods of the celestial realm. Why did you submit to this guy? However, Irene did not even look at him. She seemed to be disdainful and directly ignored him. Although they were all Protoss, there were still differences between the nobility and the lowly. Ernst, why aren't you letting her go? Hasegawa coldly shouted. I. Ernst hesitated. He wanted to let her go but also did not want to. If he let her go, what if Dustless turned hostile? I've given you a chance. A gloomy voice came from behind. It was as cruel as a poisonous snake. Ernst quickly looked back. It was Dustless who had appeared out of nowhere. What made Ernst despair the most was that a golden sword was floating above his head. Wait, I still have something to say, you. Pucci. Before Ernst could finish his words, the Kusanagi sword slashed down. His body was split into two halves on the spot. A large amount of blood splattered out. The smell of blood in the air was really unpleasant. Then a black flame fell on Ernst's body and burned him into nothingness in a short time. You're really cold, Hasegawa. Dustless looked at the unmoved Nagayakawa and Rafa Irene. The two of them didn't even look at Eunice. Should I sympathize with this guy? He was originally monitoring me. He deserved to die. Hasegawa's face was ruthless. Not to mention that she had already pleaded for Ernst. At the same time, her tone had a trace of arrogance. Although we are of the same race, there are differences between Protoss. Hearing this, Dustless shrugged. This was true. After all, she was also one of the 10 gods. What the hell was Ernst? He was just a mere scum. By the way, why did you suddenly come? Looking at the two women, Dustless suddenly asked. He did not inform them to come, and there was no need for them to come. After you left, someone came to take Pyrolite to the demon realm. Hasegawa and Irene looked at each other and said slowly. Those guys are not good people. Reject them all. The demon realm is a place that eats people without spitting out the bones. Pyrolite is too simple and not suitable for that place. Dustless said coldly. Unfortunately, that person claimed to be Pyrolite's uncle. His name is Ramses. Even if we stop him, Pyrolite will meet him. Hasegawa shrugged. This kind of thing could not be stopped at all. After all, the two sides were related by blood. Troublesome things are piling up one after another. Dustless rubbed his eyes, then his face showed a touch of coldness. Then let's go to the demon realm to take a look. Maybe we can meet that stinking brat Dongqing Ringing. Dongqing Ringing's whereabouts were not found in the heavenly realm or the human world. Where else could this brat go except to the demon realm? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 37. At this moment, an uninvited guest had arrived at Dustless's house. The newcomer was a woman. She was graceful and beautiful, and her appearance was somewhat similar to Wanlia and her mother, Sheila. It was worth mentioning that this woman was wearing a maid's uniform. Sister Lucia. When Wanlia saw the maid, she was slightly surprised. She seemed to have thought of something. Master Qing is now Master's servant. You'd better not take her away, especially when you don't even greet me. Master? Hearing Wanlia's address, Lucia's big purple eyes showed a trace of displeasure. Is that guy worth you being so humble? Yes, he is. Even I am tempted by that guy. Wanlia's mother, Shara, seemed to have come out of a different dimension. She suddenly stood in front of Lucia and licked her lips. Her eyes were shining. Dustless is very strong even in that aspect. He fought with Qing for more than 10 hours and knocked her out. His stamina is ridiculously strong, isn't it? If it were anyone else, they would have been too ashamed to show their faces. But to Wanlia, her mother Shara, and Lucia, the three of them were as calm as still water. They did not feel uncomfortable at all, as if it was a common thing. I don't understand what's so special about that Dustless guy. This time, I'm only here to pass on Lord Ramses's order. We must take Xianxia away. Lucia's expression was serious and her tone was unquestionable. It was as if anyone who said no was her enemy. This forceful attitude made Wanlia and Shara frown. They had been together for some time, and they knew that Dustless was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Lucia's tone was so firm that Dustless would be dissatisfied sooner or later. Coming to my territory and causing trouble. If it was Ramses himself, it would be fine. But you are just a servant. Where did you get the courage? Dustless had not arrived yet, but his unhappy voice rang in their ears. In the distance, a ray of divine light streaked across the sky and rushed toward them. You're here just in time. Lucia raised her eyebrows. She was curious about Dustless, whom her sister Wanlia and mother Shara admired. Buzz buzz buzz. Light condensed in the room as Dustless strolled out. Photons floated around him, and under the contrast of the golden light, he looked like an inviolable god. You are Dustless Xianxia's master? Wuxia was absent-minded for a moment, but when she recalled Dustless's strength she respectfully said, Lord Ramses hopes that Chenghis Koto will go to the demon realm. In the end it was still a world where the strong ruled. Strength determined everything. Hearing this, Dustless only swept a few glances at Wuxia and calmly inquired, since he wants to take Hui to the demon realm, why doesn't he come himself? Sending a servant to deliver a message, who are you looking down on? Displeasure flashed in Lucia's eyes. Wasn't this implying that she wasn't qualified? Lord Ramses still has to guard against Demon King Leo Hart. How can he leave the demon realm at will? And what does this have to do with me? Dustless rudely interrupted Wuxia and unreasonably said, I don't have a good impression of that smelly old man. As his voice fell, Dustless glanced at Shara intentionally or unintentionally. Shara and Ramses had given birth to Wanlia, so the relationship between them was self-evident. He thought that Shara would be angry or even angry, but her delicate face was calm. She just looked with interest at how the gloomy Wuxia would deal with Dustless. Lucia's beautiful eyes flickered with a faint cold light. She looked at Dustless for a moment and then expressionlessly asked, Who are you calling a smelly old man? I didn't hear you clearly. Please repeat it, Your Excellency. Boom, boom, boom. Wuxia burst out with a large-scale magic fluctuation, and the magic light flashing behind her almost materialized. She glared at Dustless with great hostility and coldly said, I forgot to tell you, Lord Ramses is Huey's uncle. How can an outsider like you interfere with their meeting? Family? The sneer on Dustless's face became thicker and it was as cold as ice. He turned a deaf ear to the pressure released by Wuxia and ignored it as if it were air. He contemptuously said, Family? Do you understand the true meaning of family? When Hui was being hunted down, why didn't that uncle of hers come to help? Don't find excuses for me. If you really treat Hui as your family, you should understand that nothing in this world is more important than family. Now that I've killed Zukio, Ramses has jumped out. Bah. Dustless sneered and scoffed at Ramses. That old man invited Hui to the demon realm to awaken her demon king power. Although the intention was good, it would definitely cause the strong dissatisfaction of the current demon king Leon Hart. It was tantamount to directly pushing Hui to the front, and Leon Hart would definitely not let her go. With Ramses's current strength, it was impossible to protect Hui. In a way, it was tantamount to directly pushing Ching Setsuya into the fire pit. Buzz buzz buzz. At this moment the space suddenly trembled and collapsed. The irregular crack quickly expanded and endless purple light erupted from it. It was like a space door and a burly and old figure walked out of it. Dustless squinted and carefully looked at the person in front of him. Ramses? The red-haired old man gently nodded and looked at Luoyu with a complicated expression and a trace of shame. As Dustless said, nothing in this world was more important than family, but when Hui was in danger he had been busy with other things. I'm sorry. After a moment of silence, Ramses finally lowered his head in shame. You don't need to apologize to me. You got the wrong person, so you should apologize to me. Dustless's tone softened. He knew that Ramses was in a difficult position, and the old man's attitude was sincere, so his disgust was reduced a lot. Chapter 38. Hearing this, Dustless's expression was stiff. He was silent for a long time and his expression was calm and collected. This made Ariella extremely surprised. If a normal person were to hear of such a crazy plan against them, they would be scared witless or at least pale with fright. But Dustless. Sounds interesting. No idea how long had passed either. Dustless responded with a sentence. Interesting. Ariella dug her ears, thinking that she had misheard. She looked at Dustless speechlessly and said, Did you not hear what I said? Someone wants to use your essence for an experiment, and now you're telling me that it's interesting? Are you crazy? What's so strange about this? In the past it's not like I haven't encountered this kind of thing before. Dustless's expression did not change and he spoke naturally. In those clear eyes, there was an eternal indifference brewing. This pair of eyes, this pair of bright and wise eyes, did not seem to care about anything. I think you've given up. Ariella snorted in disdain. In her opinion, Dustless had already given up because this guy was already under her control. Perhaps he had already let go of his stubbornness. So what if he was dissatisfied? He could not even get past her. Those guys don't dare to face me directly, so they used you, the ace spy. Dustless changed the topic and looked at Ariella seriously and reminded her, don't tell me you didn't see it. Those guys have already abandoned you and you're still willing to work for them? My business is not for you to interfere. Ariella replied coldly, but there was a clear trace of pain in her eyes. Looks like you're still not satisfied. Dustless smiled faintly. If you're not satisfied, why don't you fight against your own fate? Even an ant has the right to struggle. I'm going to fight against Knifer alone? You must be kidding me. Ariella's tone revealed a trace of fear, as if she was afraid of Knifer's organization. She bitterly mocked herself. They're a military organization and I'm alone. Even if I'm dissatisfied, what can I do? In this world there are always people who are sacrificed as tools. And Ariella belonged to the category of tools. No, I don't agree with this. Dustless shook his finger, his whole body exuding an aura of vicissitudes, and only heard him speak like an old man. Kid, it's okay to be looked down upon by others. You're still young and you still have a long way to go in the future. Even if you lose your face now, you can still earn it back in the future. No matter what, you have to remember that if you look down on yourself, your future will definitely be filled with darkness. Hearing this, Allegra fell silent. His brows furrowed and relaxed at times. It sounded like there was some truth in his words. Stop trying to bewitch me. After a moment of silence, a cold light flashed across her face, and Ariella leaned forward, directly lying on Dustless's body, her soft hand covering Dustless's mouth to prevent him from continuing to talk. She coldly said, you can't even protect yourself and you still have the mood to bewitch me? It's a waste of talent if you don't become a speaker. Without hesitation, Eli tore Wu Chen's clothes apart. Wu Chen's well-proportioned body was revealed. Eli was stunned by Wu Chen's appearance. You look skinny and weak, but your body is amazing. Ariella looked at Dustless's abdomen with infatuation, nodding her head in praise as she looked at the 8-pack abs on Dustless's abdomen. These abs seemed to have been purposely made, and were embedded on Dustless's body, not too big nor too small, very standard. Although you're young, your heart is actually very barbaric. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In his memory, the number of times a woman tore his clothes apart could be counted on one hand. Moreover, this was obviously a king child, not a woman. Here's the next part. Ariella's pair of beautiful eyes swept across Dustless's lower body, and her hands gradually moved over. Let's stop here. Dustless's cold voice sounded, and Ariella laughed coldly, not taking it seriously. You're already drugged and you're still trying to act tough? Therefore, without any hesitation, her two small hands continued to move towards Dustless's waist. Because he was wearing sweatpants, as long as she gently untied the belt around his waist, his pants could be taken off. But, bang. Suddenly, a huge force landed on Ariella's shoulder, and she violently spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body lying on Dustless's body also flew backwards. You didn't listen to me, you ungrateful woman. Dustless suddenly stood up. His gaze was stern and his expression was resolute. He didn't look like he was drugged at all. He turned around and walked towards the wardrobe in the other bedroom. It seemed like he was going to change his clothes. How is this possible? Ariella wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and looked at Dustless, who was walking as if he was flying. She was completely stunned. Could it be that this guy was faking it all along? Ariella, what did you do to Master Dustless? At the same time, Elise also rushed in, her beautiful eyes filled with anger. This friend of hers whom she trusted actually dared to lay her hands on Dustless? Ariella's face twitched as if she couldn't explain, so she shut her mouth. There was no point in explaining to Elise, as she was Dustless's errand boy. I say, little girl, how about we make a deal? In just a few seconds, Wu Qin changed into a new shirt and held a goblet in his hand. There was a glass of juice in it. A deal. Ariella, who was originally in despair, was reinvigorated when she heard these two words. She asked, what kind of deal? Chapter 39. Not bad. Only a woman like her would be likable. Seeing this, Dustless smiled proudly and gave her an admiring look. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Although he was forced to do this, Dustless only cared about the end result. He did not care about the process. To be able to force a mortal enemy to become his follower, wasn't that something to be proud of? You go and inform those guys in Knifeling that they'll come to make a deal in 3 days. Let me see which idiot is coming to die. Dustless said gloomily. His eyes were flashing with scarlet light. When he spoke, the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. I understand. Elila nodded with a pale face. Her body was trembling unnaturally. Even if he did not deliberately target her, Elila's body was still instinctively afraid. This was an innate fear, just like the invisible restraint of higher life forms towards lower life forms. There was always a lingering fear. Now she finally understood Dustless's strength. He was just playing with her. If he really wanted to kill her, he would not even have to lift a finger. He could kill her with just a thought. All right, you may leave. Dustless's expression returned to normal and his tone was gentle. Although he had killed countless people, Dustless had always used a combination of kindness and power to deal with his own people. When it was time to be tough, he would be tough, and when it was time to be gentle, he would use gentle means. Elila did not dare to stay any longer. She bowed deeply and left quietly with a fearful expression. Master Dustless, I did not expect this to happen. It's all my fault. I'm very sorry. Elise lowered her head in shame. Although Dustless was fine, she was the one who introduced Elila. You did not do anything wrong. After all, it's hard to tell what's in a person's heart. Just be more careful in the future. Dustless sat on the sofa and ate his snack seriously. Even though Elise's strength had been constantly improving recently, her mind had not changed. She was still as pure and naive as before. However, this was not her fault. This child was still young, lacked experience, and had not experienced any great storms. Elise, who was living in a greenhouse, always lacked the courage to deal with danger alone. Besides, changing the topic, Dustless smiled and said, instigating a spy can also be considered a gain. The merits offset the demerits. I still think I'm in the wrong. I'll only feel better if you punish me. Elise lowered her head and spoke in a very soft and honest tone. You're quite honest. Dustless smiled and shook his head to refuse. In fact, he was quite satisfied with Elise. There was no perfect person in this world. In the past, Dustless's underlings were much more outstanding than Elise, but none of them could make him worry. Some of them even betrayed him. But I've already said your merits and demerits offset. If there's a next time, I'll really punish you. Dustless deliberately made a very scary expression. No way. Who would have thought that Elise would reject him in a serious manner? She emphasized in a serious tone, as Lord Wuxian's first servant, I have to set an example. I don't want Keely and Allegra to try to take advantage of my feelings when they make a mistake. This time it was Dustless's turn to be surprised. He didn't expect this girl to think so far ahead. She even included Allegra and Keely in the equation. However, Dustless still had no intention of punishing Elise. Usually his so-called punishment was to kill. We'll talk about the punishment later. Dustless casually replied. He then lowered his head and continued to eat his snacks. However, it was at this moment that Elise suddenly leaned over with a red face. This confused Dustless. What's wrong with this girl? A woman's mind is really hard to predict. I know what Lord Dustless likes. Do you want to try? Elise's voice was so weak that it was almost inaudible. There was even a faint feeling that she found it difficult to speak. It seemed like she was embarrassed. That's interesting. I don't even know what I like. What would you know? Tell me. Dustless looked at Elise with interest. Of course I know. Elise's face was red with excitement. It seemed that neither Keely nor Allegra had noticed Dustless's hobbies. Elise was the only exception. These days, Lord Dustless has a favorite activity. Which activity? Hearing this, Dustless was confused. He lowered his head and thought for a while. However, he still didn't understand. His eyebrows furrowed and he was even more confused. Frankly speaking, the only thing that interested him was the most powerful person in the world. However, the so-called powerful people in this world were so weak that he could kill the most powerful person with a single breath. Therefore Dustless was looking forward to what interest Elise was talking about. Could it be that he really did have a unique hobby? Just as Dustless was thinking hard, Elise suddenly turned her back to him. Her beautiful eyes were watery, and her head was almost buried in her cleavage. Her small hands moved down slightly and landed on the corner of her skirt. It was as if she had touched the most private part of her body. Elise's face was covered with a sickly blush. I'm going to start. Elise's words attracted Dustless's attention. The moment Dustless looked over and saw the girl's movements, his expression turned stiff. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Elise, this little girl actually slowly lifted her skirt. A scene that could make a man's blood boil appeared in front of him. Her light pink breasts and her perfectly round breasts. The skin on both sides of her breasts was as clear as snow, and the surface seemed to be covered with a faint layer of light. It was a dazzling sight. Come on. Those 3 simple words seemed to have used up all of Elise's strength. She gritted her teeth and her face was red. I am embarrassed too, but I can't help it. Lord Dustless likes this. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless hurriedly coughed. Speechless, he asked, when did I say that I like this? I saw it all. Elise couldn't even speak normally. She said in an extremely soft voice, when Keely and Allegra did something wrong, Lord Dustless punished them like this. F***ck. Dustless wanted to cry but no tears came out. This time he really felt like jumping into the Yellow River would never be able to clear his name. He did this as a warning. Otherwise he would kill them directly. Chapter 40. After all, Xianxia was already dead. No matter how much Dustless hated this kid, he wouldn't stoop to the level of a dead person. So, what do you plan to do next? Dustless looked at Ingman real name. He definitely had to leave. Then this child would become the new king of the human race. In a world without him and Xianxia, no one could stop Ingman real name's footsteps. Ingman real name choked when she heard this. She wasn't as happy as she had imagined. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Xianxia was already dead. What should she do? The most pitiful thing is actually people like you, right? Dustless's tone was filled with pity. Previously, Ingman real name relied on hatred to survive. Now that the main culprit Xianxia was dead, she seemed to have lost the meaning of living. I'll take my leave. Have fun. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense. He whistled and walked away leisurely. With your current ability, it shouldn't be a problem for you to dominate the world. I'm tired of playing. I'll leave this world to you to continue wreaking havoc. In his words, Dustless treated the future of the entire human race as a game. In fact, he was such a selfish person. He only had himself in his eyes. If you wanted him to think for others, the sun would rise from the west. Please guide me. Ingman real name immediately blocked Dustless's path and knelt down sincerely. I've offended you in the past. I hope you can forgive me. Guide you? Dustless opened his mouth when he heard this. He stared at Ingman real name in shock as if he had seen a new continent. This woman changed so quickly. Didn't she want to kill him when she met him previously? Now she needed him to guide her. I'm not interested. Dustless replied expressionlessly. This sentence made Ingman real name's confused gaze even more desperate. He said frankly, I'm a very selfish person. In this world I only help 2 kinds of people. My women and my little brother. You're neither of them. What reason do I have to help you? God loved the world. Perhaps God was really so great. However, there was a condition. You had to believe in him sincerely. Otherwise, would God save you? Absolutely not. Therefore, there was no free lunch in this world. I am willing to follow you. Ingman real name looked up at Dustless, her beautiful eyes glowing with a bright light as bright and firm as diamonds. What a foolish woman. Dustless couldn't be bothered to say more. His eyes blinked and his lips moved slightly. He wanted to say something but stopped. In fact, he roughly understood what Ingman's real name was thinking. He probably wanted to find a way to resurrect Ingmanji from him. In fact, Dustless really wanted to ask if it was really worth it. Just for a dead person. You've been poisoned with feelings. Dustless sighed and then said coldly, since you've chosen to follow me, don't regret it. After that he resolutely turned around and left. Ingman's real name couldn't help but be overjoyed when she heard this. She quickly wiped the starlight surging from the corner of her eyes and immediately followed. Since Dustless was able to revive her, then reviving Ingmanji shouldn't be too difficult. Time flew and in the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Xianxia was killed by Dustless and GHQ, which was originally entrenched in Japan, also collapsed. At present the country was controlled by the imperial household. Although the imperial household was not an outstanding politician, he had some means to manage everything in an orderly manner. The country was gradually on the right track. However, because of the previous war, most of Japan had been turned into ruins. Currently they were in the midst of intense reconstruction which required a lot of funds. Therefore the process was very slow. It would probably take decades to recover. Even so, the imperial household was very satisfied. At least they had taken back the ruling power and everything would slowly get better. In a certain villa of the imperial household, Dustless did not leave for the time being. He still lived a life of debauchery and drunkenness. During this period he also picked the delicate flower Arisa. After all, she was sent to his door and Dustless couldn't refuse her kindness. It would be a waste if he didn't take it, right? In the garden where hundreds of flowers were blooming, the spring was in full bloom. Green and pink intertwined in the sea of flowers, the scenery was too beautiful to behold. In a pavilion, Wuxian was leisurely lying on a couch. His eyes were half closed and he was snoring lightly. He seemed to be asleep. There was also a figure standing beside him, Asamiya Iase. Her back was straight and she was always on guard like a bodyguard. Not long after, there was a burst of messy footsteps. Dustless opened his eyes and looked at Asamiya Iase with dissatisfaction. Why didn't you stop them? Can I stop them? Asamiya Iase shrugged, showing a helpless expression. Looking up, the people who were coming were imperial households Arisa and others. Dustless, Sama, I heard that you are leaving? Imperial households Arisa was the first to rush over, followed by Sakura, Xianxia, Yatu and Inori, including Sakura's real name and others. Among them, the most nervous were Sakura, Xianxia and Imperial households Arisa. What shouldn't have happened had happened. They were already Dustless's people. Even if they were dissatisfied, they could only follow him. For this world, I was originally a passerby, and I will naturally leave at the end of the trip. Dustless told the truth, and at the same time his eyes fell on Sakura's real name and asked doubtfully, I said before you are free. Dustless agreed to the request of Sakura's real name and resurrected Sakura Manji. He didn't embarrass Sakura's real name and gave her freedom very generously, but this child came back. It was really strange. In fact, after the resurrection, Sakura Manji was a bit strange and panicked. After seeing Sakura's real name, she was still nervous and scared. She probably subconsciously thought that this sister was a monster. She was afraid that she couldn't avoid it. This made Sakura's real name suffer a blow. Even though she always wanted to take care of Sakura Manji, her brother, he was always afraid of her. Sakura's real name smiled bitterly and explained, I will continue to follow Dustless Sama. For Sakura, I am a nightmare-like existence. It is enough for him to live happily, and I, as his sister, will disappear from his sight forever. You are really carefree, worthy of praise. You have made progress in your thinking. Dustless showed a rare look of appreciation. Love was not simply possession. As long as the other party was happy, it was enough. Sakura's real name seemed to be really relieved now. What about you guys? Dustless's eyes swept over them one by one, and Inori nodded without hesitation. It seemed that because he created this new body for her, she was extremely dependent on Dustless, and probably already regarded him as a father. I'll suffer a little and walk with you. Blackbird still had the same carefree look on her face. She crossed her arms in a very proud manner. Even if I stay, you will forcibly drag me away, right? Sakura Manji and Xianxia already understood Dustless's character. This guy would never give up on someone who had slept with him. In Dustless's words, leave her alone? What a joke. What if she was cuckolded? Then let's run. Dustless smiled faintly and snapped his fingers. The sky above burst open, revealing a huge door, and a golden halo shot out and swallowed them. Chapter 41. After all, Zierda was still a sinner through and through. She could still move freely, but she was still a sinner. In the original work, in order to get rid of her punishment, she had even secretly contacted Tian Weiyao. The deal was that after Tian Weiyao became the champion of the Lion Heron Star Martial Arts Festival, her punishment would be lifted, and she would help Tian Weiyao recover her consciousness. Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance this time. The light condensed on Dustless's fingertip shot out again and easily penetrated Zierda's knee. She immediately screamed. "Sir, I've already told you everything. Why are you still targeting me like this?" Zierda endured the pain and asked. Although her tone was gentle and respectful, and her attitude was respectful to Dustless, there was still hatred in the depths of her eyes. It was fine if this kind of person was unknown in the future, but once she rose to the top, she would definitely not let Dustless off so easily in the future. Therefore, this woman must die. "I'm really sorry. Thank you for your information, but you must die." Dustless's thumb flashed again and aimed at Zierda's head. The girl was startled. Then, her expression looked as if she was possessed by an evil spirit. She cursed with a sinister expression, "Damn scum, I curse you." Before she could finish her sentence, the light beam swept out like a divine sword. Zierda's head exploded on the spot, and bright red brain matter splattered all over the ground. Dustless didn't feel guilty about killing this woman. Who knew how many crazy scientists like Zierda had died under her hands? It was best if she died. Alphalia was a living example. Although she had miraculously survived and became one of the strongest witches in history, the price she had to pay was that she had lost her humanity forever. She had probably been destroyed by Hilda, and this time he would take revenge for her. Before leaving, Dustless burned down this evil laboratory, including some of the human materials. All of them were buried in the sea of fire. This could be considered as helping them escape. By the time Dustless returned, today's competition had already ended. The students of the Star Guide Academy were not very lucky. Their opponents were extremely powerful. Dao Ting Qiren and Sha Gong Sha Yi were scared but not in any danger. As for the others, they were sadly eliminated. For example, Lei Shida was defeated as soon as he appeared. By the time they returned to the Star Director Academy in the evening, Elena had already recovered and could walk around safely. "Sir, if you have any tasks for me, feel free to tell me." Elena respected Dustless as if he was her second parent. If it wasn't for him, the two sisters might have died without a complete corpse. "You just need to rest." Dustless waved his hand. He didn't really care. He didn't have anything important to give to Elena. "But I'm not used to always cheating you for food and drinks." Elena looked at Dustless with a troubled expression. "You're quite an honest person." Wuchen looked at Elena strangely. This woman trusted him so much that she would even do it if he asked her to die. "But if you really want to do it, I'll give you a task." Dustless narrowed his eyes, shooting out a ruthless light, and said, "In case something uncontrollable happens, you go and kill the entire Sky Mistling Do family." "Understood." Elena nodded without hesitation and then quietly left. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. It was time for Dustless to participate in the second round of the Star Phoenix Martial Festival. Unfortunately, his opponent was World Dragon 7th Academy. One of them was called Li Xinyun, ranked 9th in World Dragon 7th Academy, and her sister was called Li Shenhua. "I heard you defeated that pair of trash yesterday. Looks like you're not bad. But don't think you can defeat us siblings today." Li Xinyun's eyes were unruly as she looked at Dustless and Yuli's with a gloomy face. "In the end, it's just good luck." Li Shenhua also had a disdainful attitude. Did these two idiots eat gunpowder or something? Who are they venting their anger at? Dustless was secretly depressed. He and Yuli seemed to have never offended these two Chinibu patients. "Those two fellows were originally our prey. Since you two killed them, we'll start with you too." Li Xinyun's eyes were filled with hostility. Even though they were all from the same school, he and Li Shenhua were from the water faction, while Song Ran and Luo Kunzhen were from the wood faction. The two factions were like fire and water and were completely hostile to each other. Originally, Li Xinyun and Li Shenhua wanted to take care of those two from the wood faction, and take the opportunity to attack Fan Xinglu's power. But the plan could not keep up with the changes. Song Ran and Luo Kunzhen were defeated the moment they entered the arena. They were beaten up by Dustless and Yuli's, which naturally disrupted the siblings' plan. Therefore, Dustless and Yuli's were hated by the siblings. Even if you're being unreasonable, you should know when to stop. World Dragon Academy having students like you is simply a disgrace. Yuli said in annoyance. The siblings' eyes were very annoying, as if they were looking at insects. I hope you two can still be so arrogant later. I won't let you leave so easily. I'll have to torture you. Li Xinyun's face was distorted, and Li Xinhua also revealed a sick smile. Likewise, I also have the same plan. Dustless responded, and his face was brewing murderous intent. These two little perverts had personality defects, and their personalities were similar to sadomasochism. In the original work, they tortured Yuli so much that she almost lost consciousness. Therefore, Dustless also hated these two siblings and took the opportunity to cripple them. Chapter 42. This wave of framing was really powerful and extraordinary. Even Dustless couldn't find fault with it. Perhaps even Xiao Jiwu thought that he was the mastermind behind it. Do you agree or not? Ming Wu leaned over and naturally laid beside Dustless. She purposely opened her collar and exposed her snow-white skin. If you agree, there will be a reward. Ming Wu blinked her seductive eyes. Her burning gaze almost melted Dustless. Anyone who was looked at by her would feel their heart racing and their blood boiling. Dustless did not fall for it. He raised his hand and rubbed the girl's head. Alright, you can go back. You just want to speed up your sister's IS construction project, right? I'll just give the order. This was not a big deal. It was just a matter of Dustless's words. I knew you're the best. Hearing this, Ming Wu smiled and blushed. She took the initiative to leave a kiss mark on the right side of Dustless's face. If there are any women looking for trouble with you in the future, just leave it to me. I'm the best at solving girls' problems. Ming Wu clenched her fist to show off to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes. He did not even need to think about it. This girl must have done something bad to someone else and then pushed the blame onto him. She even said that it was his order. Then I'll go back. After achieving her goal, Ming Wu skipped away. I'll go to Ming Wu's place to have a look. It would be best if I could explain it to her. But according to my estimation, that kid probably won't listen. Dustless looked at Ming Wu's back and also got up to leave. It would have been fine if she had just casually beaten up Xiao Jiwu. The key point was that Ming Wu even stripped her naked in front of everyone. How could a girl like Ming Wu endure this? In front of Xiao Jiwu's dorm, Dustless pressed the doorbell. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless coughed twice and put on a selfless expression. Ming Wu, I'm sorry about what happened before. I'm here to look for you. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dustless's voice hadn't even fallen when an ear-piercing sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Glancing sideways, he saw countless fiery lights flashing in his direction. Missiles? That's interesting. Dustless narrowed his eyes. His right eye suddenly turned into a mysterious blue and white eye, allowing him to see everything tens of kilometers away. Even a fly 10 kilometers away could be seen clearly. From this, one could see how terrifying and powerful the Tensigan was. In the sky 10 kilometers away, a silver-white IS stood in the sky. Its body was covered in black smoke. Clearly, it was this mysterious IS that launched the missiles. Bang, 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 bang. The missile exploded before it even reached them. The guards of the IS Academy were not bad. It's probably the Silver Gospel. Dustless retracted his gaze. After some observation, he realized that it was an unmanned AI machine. Someone was controlling it from behind the scenes. Despicable bastard, how dare you appear in front of me? The door suddenly opened, revealing a fierce face. Who else could it be but Xianxia? Still so fierce. Seems that you are not injured. You are very energetic. Wu Chen heaved a sigh of relief and said with a faint smile, Your sister has planned a performance for you to debut. Dustless looked at the horizon in the distance. His tone became meaningful. Although he only observed for a dozen seconds, Dustless could see that this Silver Gospel that attacked the IS Academy was quite good. There were as many as 4 propulsion devices behind it. The normal IS only had 2. There was also a huge gap between the 3rd-generation IS and the mecha and weapons. Probably adopted some 4th-generation IS technology. Other than Xianxia, who else could create an IS that transcends generations? She probably wanted to use this opportunity to show the superiority of Red Toon to the world. However, I overestimated your strength. Looking at the silver gospel in the distance, it was not that Dustless didn't believe in Xianxia. This kid just got Red Toon not long ago and didn't have much time to train. Secondly, this IS was obviously modified. Some of the technology was upgraded. It had the foundation of the 4th generation IS and was probably several times more powerful than the original Silver Gospel. If Xianxia wanted to deal with it alone, it would be impossible. Me. Xianxia's expression was also a bit hesitant. She wanted to back out. After being beaten up by Xianxia, she realized that she was pitifully weak and began to question her own ability. If I go, I will only embarrass my sister and disappoint her. Xianxia bit her cracked lips as blood slowly flowed out. She was unwilling to give up. With your current strength, you will be beaten if you go. Dustless nodded in agreement and then said slowly, I remember when I asked you to follow me, you refused. Who can you blame? If you follow me, you have seen Cecilia's improvement, right? Although Xianxia was currently the strongest person in the IS Academy, according to Dustless's prediction, once Cecilia and Xianxia fought, she, as the student council president, would lose. It was almost certain that there would be no accidents. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, explosions occurred in other directions of the IS Academy. Suffocating black smoke filled the air as giant fireballs appeared in the air. The smoke of war spread across the entire IS Academy. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Unknown IS appeared one after another like ghosts and attacked the school without restraint. They didn't even let the students go. This is all my sister's doing? Xianxia clenched her fist in disbelief. What was the difference between this behavior and terrorists? Chapter 43. Leave her to me. Ulysses' beautiful eyes glowed with a scorching light. Li Shenhua treated her as prey, but she didn't know that Ulysses also treated Li Shenhua the same way. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In front of Dustless, a large number of paper talismans shot towards him. All of them were filled with the words, urgent as the law order. Die, you arrogant fellow. Li Shenhua roared. His hand suddenly formed a hand shadow as he shouted, explode. Boom boom boom. The explosion talismans around Dustless exploded at the same time, fusing into a ferocious fireball that burned crazily on his body. Crackling sounds continuously came from it as if a person was being burned. Is this guy really a Daoist? Why does he feel like a ninja? Dustless, who was in the fireball, slowly walked forward. As for the burning sea of fire around him, he ignored it. First, it was the clone technique and then this kind of explosive talisman. No matter how one looked at it, it all looked like something a ninja would use. This brat, even if he doesn't die, he will shed a layer of skin. What? The smile on Li Shenhun's face suddenly froze, and she couldn't help but open her eyes wide. Dustless walked out of the fire with a relaxed expression. His expression was normal and there were no signs of him being burned. Damn it, what kind of monster is this guy? Why didn't he burn? Li Shenhun's face was ashen, but the audience outside burst into an earth-shattering sound. So powerful. I think that Li Shenhun is finished. That's right, he will definitely lose. After fighting for so long, he didn't even touch a hair of his opponent. How can he participate in the Phoenix Star martial arts ceremony with this kind of standard? I think he's just here to be funny. The audience outside were discussing and snorting at Li Shenhun. It was too embarrassing. She had created such a mess, but in the end she didn't even touch the body of her opponent. You bastard, just you wait, I'll teach you a lesson soon. Hearing the ear-piercing ridicule, Li Shenhun's resentment towards Dustless deepened. Has this brat's head been squeezed by the door? What does it have to do with me if the audience outside is following suit? Looking at this kid's vicious expression, Dustless was also speechless. This kid's brain must have been hit with iron. You don't seem to have any more tricks up your sleeve. It's my turn now. Dustless gazed at the clones of Li Shenhun, formed a hand seal and spat out a sea of fire from his mouth. Fire style, grand fire annihilation. Boom boom boom. Dustless spat out a vast sea of fire from his mouth. It was like a tsunami rolling out. Everywhere it went, not even a blade of grass grew. Even the ground was scorched black. Bang bang bang. Those invisible explosive talismans all exploded, blowing the sea of fire into pieces. Like scattered raindrops, they sprinkled to every corner and the sky was raining fire. Boom boom boom. However, it was useless. The sea of fire was too powerful and continuous. Even though the first wave was blasted into smithereens, the second wave, which was even more vast, continued to crush Li Xinyun. Damn it! Those clones were forced into a desperate situation. Their eye sockets were about to burst. Although the competition area wasn't small, the sea of fire was too big. They were all forced into a corner. Boom boom boom. The flames swept out with unstoppable force. The ground was scorched black and those clones were turned into nothingness. You are the only one left, brat. Dustless glanced at Li Xinyun, who was the only one left. No matter how many clones you have or how many explosive talismans you have, it is all a matter of fire. Buzz buzz buzz. Immediately after, Dustless lifted his right leg. Light beams were wrapped around it. He aimed at Li Xinyun's location and threw a kick. Light speed kick. Boom boom boom. The light beams landed on Li Xinyun's location and exploded like a time bomb. Tumbling flames and mushroom clouds burned fiercely. That brat didn't even have a corpse left. It seems like it is over. Dustless put his hands in his pockets and said indifferently, "This boring competition is finally over." It is finally over? A sinister voice that sounded like a venomous snake came from behind. Li Xinyun appeared like a ghost again. He stuck out his disgusting tongue and said with a sinister smile, "I'm sorry. Those that were killed by you were actually clones. Go to hell." At the same time, Li Xinyun threw out countless explosive talismans and stuck them tightly to Dustless's body. "Is that so? Then you are really smart." Dustless smiled and praised. Even though his entire body was covered by the explosive talismans, his expression didn't change. His eyes were still as calm as an ancient well. "This time I will blow you up until you lose consciousness," Li Xinyun roared. He then shouted, "Explode." Boom boom boom. Thousands of explosive talismans exploded at the same time. The momentum was shocking. Dustless's body immediately burned and turned into a terrifying flaming man. The power released from the explosion was extremely powerful. The ground under Dustless's feet was instantly blown into a deep pit. No matter who it was, they would die without a doubt under such terrifying heat. "Ha, you should be done for now. Not only will I eliminate you but I will also roast you." Li Xinyun laughed maniacally. His eyes were filled with madness and had turned blood red. "Commentator, are you an idiot? Why aren't you announcing the winner?" Li Xinyun roared at the commentator after laughing proudly for more than 10 seconds. "I'm really sorry. The school emblem didn't break and I didn't lose consciousness. There will definitely be no winner." A deathly stifling voice resounded behind her. Li Xinyun suddenly quivered and hurriedly turned around to take a look. Chapter 44. What's the matter? Atlanta looked at her bewildered look and frowned. Because not only Fiore, but even Dustless's expression was extremely strange at the moment, revealing a rare trace of shock. "I'm also very surprised. Why would a dead person suddenly resurrect? That guy was indeed killed by me, I can be 100% sure, but now, he's resurrected." Dustless was also full of doubts. Following his line of sight, he saw Archer standing on the ruined castle. Yes, it was the Black Archer who was previously obliterated by Dustless. In fact, not to mention Fiore, even Dustless himself was dumbfounded. He was sure that he killed Archer. But what the hell is going on? Is he a corpse or a living person? Whoosh! Once again, the sound of arrows piercing through the air could be heard. Raising his head, he saw a large number of arrows flying towards him. "Come here!" Dustless shouted at Atlanta and the chick immediately ran over. "Shinra Tensei!" Bang! Transparent ripples of power whistled, and the fatal arrows were all knocked away or broken. Archer couldn't break through this tyrannical repulsion at all. This guy seems to be wrong. Dustless glanced at Fiore and his heart was even more puzzled. There was no doubt that the Black Archer's host was Fiore, But the wave of arrow attack just now clearly covered Fiori, but it also wanted to kill the host? This didn't seem like Archer's style. Why Archer? Fiori obviously also saw the problem and asked absent-mindedly. She couldn't believe it because she and Archer didn't have a simple contractual relationship. Sometimes he was a teacher and a friend. Even without the restrictions of the contract, Archer couldn't do anything to her. But the reality was like a loud slap, slapping her in the face, and her empty eyes almost lost herself. Unfortunately, my master is no longer you, Fiori. Archer's tone was full of deep helplessness and complexity. It could be seen that this was something he couldn't change. What a joke, Dustless sneered and said disdainfully. How long has it been since I killed you? In such a short period of time, not only did you revive, you even found a new host? Atlanta and Fiori both nodded in agreement. This was too unusual. Of course not under normal circumstances, but Black Archer paused for a moment as he panted. It could be seen that he was also very shocked by this matter. After calming himself down a little, he slowly said, but with the help of the Holy Grail, wouldn't it be enough? That Sieg made a wish on the Holy Grail? Dustless's face also revealed a look of surprise. His previous doubts were quickly swept away. If it was the Holy Grail, then it was indeed not a big problem. In the eyes of many, it was an omnipotent wishing machine that could do anything. I'm really surprised. That Sieg actually made a wish to the Holy Grail. But why did he revive you? Are you very strong? Don't tease me. Dustless was still full of doubts. He frowned and said, even if that guy resurrected you for some reason, there is no reason for him to kill me. Could it be? Dustless suddenly thought of a figure in his mind. Was it because of the previous Black Rider Alstofo? After thinking about it for a while, this was the most likely possibility. For Sieg, Alstofo was his savior. Not only did he let that kid go, but he even gave Sieg the Holy Grail. This kind of great favor. Sieg estimated that he would never be able to repay it all in his life. But later Dustless killed the Black Rider. Well, to be exact, it was not Dustless who did it, but Atlanta. Of course, the most important thing was that Alstofo did not use his strength at all. He was completely thinking of suicide at that time. It's because of the rider that Sieg hates you. Black Archer once again raised his bow and aimed at Dustless. But even if that's the case, that guy relied on the Holy Grail to resurrect you. Can he kill me? Isn't this idea too ridiculous? If I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time, a third time, or even 100 times. Dustless announced expressionlessly. His voice was exceptionally loud. No, that's not my initial wish. Black Archer looked at Dustless with a gloomy expression. After a moment of silence, he said, all this time I thought that the Holy Grail was omnipotent. But until the incident with Sieg, I realized that I was wrong. That kid's wish couldn't be fulfilled? Dustless raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. Yes. Black Archer nodded heavily. He looked at Dustless with a serious expression. Sieg's initial wish was for the Holy Grail to kill you, but the Holy Grail couldn't do that. In the end, his wish changed. He resurrected several powerful heroic spirits to kill you, and I'm just one of them. Is that guy crazy? Fiori and Atlanta both exclaimed. They couldn't understand Sieg. Why did he have to go through so much trouble? Since he liked the Black Rider so much, why didn't he just use the Holy Grail to resurrect him? Why did he have to make such a cruel wish? You can play like this? Dustless rubbed his nose, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Is this considered cheating? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.